All right, let's go ahead and call this meeting to order then. Thank you guys for coming together tonight. The first thing we have on the agenda tonight is to approve the meeting minutes from July 12th, and those should be attached. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
We've already reviewed these.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
So we just have to approve them. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Motion to approve the meeting minutes from July 12th, 2018.
I'll second them.
Is it July 12th, 2019, I bet?
No, it's 2018.
Oh, no, you're right, you're right. You're right,
It's only March.
you're right.
You really wanted to be summer.
Clock's ahead only an hour.
All right, there's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. All right, and we need to accept the meeting minutes of February 21st for review.
Make that motion.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so moved. All right, next item on the agenda is Mr. John Cruz with the, it looks like we're starting with wastewater treatment facilities first, which is budget 1950. How are you, John?
I'm doing well, thank you. And yourself?
Good, thank you.
Thank you, members. It's one of these committees that, it's a thankless job. Spend a lot of time here to go over budgets, and then you can get overridden at town meeting.
Yeah, did you have fun at the last town meeting? I had a blast.
I've been going to them long enough. Let's see here. So wastewater is 1950. And
All right, looks like you're looking for some increases.
yeah, with the wastewater, it kind of explains itself. Wastewater treatment facilities, we're pretty much in charge of the soil absorption system for the town. We've got one at the Roselle, and another one. Excuse me, I've got a cold, that's why I've got this. And the other one's at the Howard School below the soccer field. It takes all the effluent from the schools, the Spring Street School, library, fire, police, Council on Aging, Howard.
Did you guys have an issue with this last year and had to replace a pump?
That's why the increase.
Okay.
We had a pump problem last year. We've got some infiltration now. We've got water leaking into the system. It's 10 years old. There's a pipe that leads from the high school.
10 years old, what's the expected life?
It's not so much the field, it's the infrastructure that gets the effluent over there. There's an old concrete line that leads from the high school, and it crosses under Howard Street, and it goes in back of the police and fire. And we've got money in here to camera the pipe to see where the leaks are. We've got a lot of water going in, and we need to find out where so we can correct it. That's why the increase in for equipment repairs and maintenance. We're waiting a couple of prices on cameraing it out. The other thing is the consultant services. We do have a professional engineer that fills out the required paperwork for the state to make sure that we do conform to all the rules and regulations. And of course, he goes out at the middle of the night. I mean, the report. I'll just read a couple of items that he had. This is for the Howard School, which takes, like I said, everything, pretty much all of it, everything except the town hall, everything in that part of town. The average, we had a couple of power failures. We've pumped 323,000 gallons of water. It seems like a lot because it is. That's where we have a problem, like I said, with the infiltration of the groundwater getting into the system.
Oh.
And we had 180 high water alarms, so he goes over there to reset the panel
High water and what?
in the pump chamber.
Oh.
Pump problems. Council on Aging had a pump problem.
Functioning properly, or is it the pump itself?
It's actually the equipment, the panel and the floats. So I know last year the Council on Aging paid, I don't know what they paid or who they paid to correct the float issue, but it's still.
I remember
So-
you talking about that.
This is a humongous tank that takes the liquid into a leaching field, or no?
Yes, that's right, Jerry. But this
Making
is,
fun of me?
no, I'm not. I'm not making fun of you at all. There's smaller tanks in back of the police and fire in the Roselle and in the high school and the Spring Street School. They have the smaller tanks and they pump it into a bigger tank at the Howard School. I think it's like 22,000 gallons. And from there, it gets pumped a few hundred feet to underneath the soccer field. That's fine. But there's things we want to upgrade. There's valves out in the field that swap it from both parts of the field, we want to change those. I want to change those because they're 10 years old. We don't want to saturate one part of the field more than the other. So we want to equally distribute the flow. Just things like
two separate leaching fields that you can.
it's all one field, but we alternate. So all the effluent isn't going to one side. So one, for instance, when the pumps come on this time, it'll alternate maybe 6 times. It'll go to the next side of the field.
Okay.
So it gives it a breather.
Is that gray water by the time it hits the field? That's the theory?
It's not gray water, it's effluent. Gray water is somewhat water that's been treated.
Yes.
This isn't treated. The only treatment it gets is to get pumped from the Howard Street tank to the field.
Should they be playing soccer on that field?
Oh, it's below grade. What do you, that's
That's why the
just,
kids are taller.
it goes down.
Like our system.
Your backyard.
But I mean, you keep saying it gets saturated.
Well, it's doing its job. What happens, it pumps it up to the field, and it leaches its way through the material, and then when it
Yeah.
goes through supposed to be 5 feet of sand,
Yeah.
it's potable water.
It's not on the surface.
No. It's at least a foot below grade.
Okay, all right. Okay, when you said saturated, I'm thinking.
No,
Right,
it's-
I'm
Around,
picturing
not
the
getting
floating
saturated.
field.
I'm using it in
Right.
plumbing terms.
Okay, all right.
I don't.
So
Yeah, I
that's
don't.
that's why I put it in my terms. So that's the reason for the increase on that.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So on the equipment repairs and maintenance, town meeting approved 3,000, right? That's what it says here. Fiscal year 19, town meeting approved 3,000.
Yes.
So why does it say negative 1,500 for year to date?
There was a transfer. It was just the way the account.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, all right. Because you approved town meeting for the consultant services 3,600 and you've spent 6,000, was that the transfer?
No, they spent they spent money. There was the school paid for some money, the Board of Health paid for some money, and then when this captured it out of the accounting line, they just hadn't finalized all their journal entries. So that's all.
The schools are supposed to pay us to pump out their tanks. Sometimes there's a lead time, lag time for the money to be reimbursed into our account.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand.
Just so we keep an eye on it, as opposed to the school. I mean, they've got enough to worry about.
Yeah, that's not there.
So let us maintain the field because we got a huge investment over there between
Yeah.
the Howard School and the Roselle. It's like $800,000. Maybe we're still paying it down, so it's a little over $800,000. So we want the professionals to make sure that it gets done when it's supposed to get done. That way, if a distributor valve does break down, I want to make sure that we replace it. So we're responsible instead of getting put off to the back.
All right, looking at the consultant line, it looks like you've already spent $6,000.
Yeah, right.
And you're only looking for 5,000.
That was some of the,
The transfer money. I think what's happening is that we were actually what happened with the schools is that I want to say the number 3,000, but it actually cost 3,500. So there's a discrepancy in the money. I don't know if we ever get properly reimbursed from when they pump out the tanks. And I don't know. I can't explain the consultant services for that $6,000.
But basically, you're going from 6,600 to 12,500.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're saying it's 10
Excuse
years
me.
old, there hasn't been a lot of change, and you've actually quadrupled since 17. You went from 3,300 in 17 to 12,500.
Things are getting older.
Understood. I mean, that's assuming, but there was nothing, you had a consulting fee back in 17. I'm just trying to understand.
Right,
Well,
how
If
is
it's
this
needed,
paid
that's
for?
one thing.
The
I'm just trying to
consultant fee is,
understand.
we have an engineer that goes out there, he checks the school, he checks the Roselle, and he checks this.
Got it.
I mean, to get a professional engineer for $5,000 a year to look at an $800,000 investment, to make sure that everything's running properly and nothing's in failure, or when it does run in failure, if the police call in the middle of the night, there's a high water going off at the senior center. I mean,
I don't want to digress or belabor this discussion, but I just want to ask you, were there any other systems? Like, I mean, was that the least expensive and the most efficient, like this gigantic septic system, or were there any other systems? I remember heard of a mini type of like a little
Treatment plant.
Treatment plant, right?
oh yeah,
Right.
then you'd be looking at a figure 3 times that.
Okay.
Then you're
That's-
looking at a monthly reporting.
There you go. That's
Like, I think
why I asked the question.
what happens when you reach the threshold of 10,000 gallons, we're at, right now, I think, like we pumped out, I want to say roughly 8,000 gallons per day last month. But when you divide it over 365, it brings us down to 5,000 gallons a day, 5,600 gallons a day over the 12 months. If we go over 10,000 gallons a day, that's when we get into a new That's the new reporting cycle. We don't want to do that.
All right, does anyone have any other questions on this budget? All right, let's move ahead on
what it
to
is.
5110, Board of Health.
Here we go. You guys look at this before?
Should we have?
Nope.
Why? That was
Well,
an
just the
odd
first,
question.
the first one on the top, it's the elected officials. And it goes from 2577, that's for 3 members, to 7295.
That's quite an increase.
It is.
Would you like to tell us about it?
I'd love to. Out of all the elected boards in town that receive compensation, the Board of Health is the least paid. We meet twice a month with our meetings. We do the same amount of work, but here's what we have for other, I've talked to other towns, and I think the dollar value isn't really relevant in terms of the pay. For instance, the Board of Health, a Board of Selectmen, 3 members, their budget is $10,375. Assessors, highest paid board in town, 3 members, $10,539. Board of Health, $2,577 for 3 members, same, all 3-member boards. Water Commission is $72.95. So the Board of Health is being discriminated upon in terms of the pay of fairness that the town seems to enjoy, and we are not fair. There are times, and I'm not just, and first of all, we're here, you guys are here, you're not here for any money. I'm not on the Board of Health for any money. It's a no-brainer. I'm not doing it because I want the money. I think it's fairness. I get called on weekends to go pick up a skunk that got run over that could be questionably rabid. I'm also on the fire department. There's been times in the past when I go to a fire alarm, for instance, a restaurant or something, and they need a member of the Board of Health. At 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm the one that's there. That's how it works. I'm not complaining. That's just the way that it goes. It's part of the job. And this was mentioned to us last year, and I figured, well, we'll just leave it alone. But this year, the members decided we bring it up.
I'm sorry, how many meetings did you say?
Twice a month.
So what are your feelings about boards that aren't paid?
I think what you should do, if you don't give us the increase, bring everybody down to us. That's fair. I think everybody in town that's on a board deserves something. I don't care if it's $100, because at least you have some skin in the game. I don't know how many positions there are in town that board members, or like you guys, I think there's like 70 or 80. I think everybody should get something.
But where's that money going to come from? We should raise taxes to pay volunteers?
Well,
Because it
you've got
sounds
the
like-
numbers in front of you.
Well, it sounds like that's almost what you're suggesting, is
No.
that the budget should be increased to pay volunteers.
I'm not saying that at all. What's the increase that you went from one year to the next? Let's look at growth. We're not talking a huge amount of money. I mean, I
disagree with the principle of it, because there are people volunteering. When you say
Right.
that you're being discriminated against, who's doing that discrimination? I mean, I can't point
It's
out
an
any one
it's an
person.
elected board. Why shouldn't all the board members be paid the same if they put the same amount of time and service and effort into it?
So
Why,
the
why are
library
they
isn't
being
paid?
why are they being looked down upon?
Let's look at the boards that aren't paid. The library.
I'm talking about the elected
Board.
boards that receive
Yeah, but they're
compensation.
elected.
I agree with that they don't receive compensation.
Right. The planning board.
Not everyone's paid equal.
So
That's just
why
not.
does
rent-
some boards get paid and some others don't?
Apparently, some other boards have gone for the increase over the years, and the Board of Health hasn't.
You know, I mean, in general, you know, you quoting the library board, they don't get paid at all, but some boards get paid some.
Right.
Is that just
Right.
arbitrary, or was there something behind that? Is there a history there?
I don't know the history.
I don't know the history. I'm sure it's very lengthy.
Right.
I'm sure there is.
I just, personally, looking ahead, I see you want to increase a salary. And, you know,
Increase the salary. That's all contractual.
appointed official, wait a minute, who's the guy going from 64 to 69,000? Health
That's our
agent?
health agent.
That's contractual.
To go up 8%.
To go 8%, that's contractual?
For
Health agent? To go
Well, it goes from 58 to 60. So if you're looking at approved FY19 at 58,498, it goes up to 60,302 for the request. So what are you talking? 3%?
No, that's clerical salaries.
Oh, I'm
Next
sorry,
line.
excuse me. I'm sorry.
Next line,
Next one down.
next one down. The health agent.
The health agent.
Right. Well, we agreed with a contract. That was a contract that we had entered into last year that we came in front of the board for approval at that time.
Which board did you?
You guys and the selectmen.
They approved that? Did they approve that? Is that 8% approved already?
I don't know. I think what John's saying is, my guess is you probably did a 3-year contract last year.
Yeah.
Last year was the first year, and this is the second year.
Right.
So the contract was in essence approved because it was approved last year at that rate of pay.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I don't really have an issue with it, only because if it's just like any building inspector, David, and others. Who else did we get into this with? It was mostly the building inspector. They leave, and you go to replace them, and you're paying $75,000, $80,000. So, so you want to keep them comparable. You want to keep them paid well. I personally feel that, maybe I'm wrong, I'm not sure the taxpayers would agree with paying every board that sits, because there's enough upward pressure on taxes. The septic system. There's so much upward pressure on taxes and taxpayers are trying to fund an entire town, which is going to become more and more difficult as the years go by, that I'm sure that if we surveyed the surrounding towns, we'd find that most boards are not paid and volunteers sit in unpaid positions.
You talking about the salary or the?
Talking about the
board?
elected officials'
Okay.
salary.
All right.
I'm saying that we would find that other towns do not do this, and we would be set, and the taxpayers won't go for it because there's just too many other important things that we need to do as a town. And if you don't want to be as a volunteer, then don't.
You're right. Absolutely right. I agree with you, Jerry. If you don't want to volunteer, don't be on the board. But I just looking at the other side, that if someone has something in there, and look, it's not about the money for me. I really don't care about the money.
Are you on the board? Are you an elected official on this board?
I am.
Okay.
See, my issue with the principal is instead of increasing your pay, I would rather go towards the other boards and try to figure out a way to make it fair instead of just arbitrarily increasing the pay to your agents. So that's not really for or against it. It would be, let's come up with a more...
Yes, right. I agree.
more-
I think all the pay should be looked at.
Well, that may be true, but that's way outside the scope of today's meeting.
What's this work out to per person?
800 and something. Oh, for the increase, it would be the same.
No, I mean for.
Total.
I think it-
800,
it's not-
800 a piece or something.
Right, right.
And then, so divide every number by 3. So
Right.
like the assessors would be like, what, 3,500 a piece, and
Yep.
the water commissioners would be like
And would you say when you
2,500
meet,
something.
you're meeting as long as the other boards?
Oh, yeah.
or-
We attend other meetings.
How did you come up with this number?
Because it matches the water commissioners.
Yeah.
It's the lowest paid as the water commissioners, that's all. That's all. We didn't come up with a formula, it's just the same number that they have. They meet twice a month, same amount of time. Same as the assessors, same as the other boards. We still got the rest of the budget to go through, so I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because
Well,
it really...
No, I
is it
agree, but I
yeah.
think that's going to be a hot button issue. Just because it has to deal with the principle that why should your board, now if we go ahead and say yes to your board, how is that fair to the other boards? We haven't put it out there that, hey, this is the principle that we agree with and let's fix it across the board. That's, I would rather take that approach than just say, yeah, you know what, you guys haven't got it and here you go.
I'd like to
That's
know
not
why
fair.
the other boards paid more than us if we do the same amount of work. I mean, there has been nothing, I mean, I've been on, I don't know, 10 or 11 years, maybe longer. I mean, I don't know how the numbers come up.
I think this is more of a principle issue that has to be dealt with at the top and that it's not a board-by-board decision as far as budgets go. I mean, I can understand your frustration completely, especially if you're meeting the same amount of
I'm
time.
not frustrated. I'm just making a point, just to bring it to your awareness, that's all. I mean, if the raise doesn't go through, it doesn't go through. It's not the end of the world. I'm not here for that. I'm more concerned about the rest of the budget. I just want to bring it so people are aware what's going on there. That's
Okay.
all. I mean, it's not a make or break, because I really don't care if I'm not on the Board of Health for the $800 a year.
Okay.
That's not how it is. We're there because we want to give back to the town. That's how it is.
So what's with the training budget? It's gone up to $950.
Let's
Is
see.
there a specific
It's almost double.
Well, he's got to be certified for, there's more classes that came out. There was something that just Homeland Security put through 2 years or so ago that needs to be, there's more training that our health agent needs.
Homeland Security?
Yeah, there's something, some health protocol. I don't know exactly what it is off the top of my head. I don't have all the,
And
yeah,
then
this-
there's the nursing services.
yeah.
Do you have any more information on how that's going? How is that working right now? Is there a nurse that goes to the Council on Aging once a week? Do you know how many people she sees or how long
Must
she's
keep-
there?
They have got to keep
I mean, there's
statistics
just
on
got to
that.
be information.
There
about
is.
it.
Maryland might have
There we go.
had it.
Did you plan that?
No, I didn't.
441 people she saw last year.
How many, were they all different people or she had 441 appointments?
Yeah, duplications.
Okay. So I'm wondering how many people is she actually touching? It might be 441 appointments, but that might
Right.
be 4 people
Sure.
going twice a week.
I do see a lot more people that we don't see at our programs coming through the door for her services frequently that aren't regulars.
I see that we upped the budget and then we've only spent 3,600. Is there something behind that?
Which one are you on?
The
Nursing.
Nursing.
So it was 79.51 and we went to 10,000, but we've only spent 3,600.
Well, that's because it's as of December.
Okay.
So
So we do expect.
we still have another 6 months left of the fiscal year, and there are things that she offers more, she's more accessible in the spring. We'll set up maybe other types of clinics. So the money's available for the extra couple of grand that's in that.
Marilyn, what
Is
does
this
she,
a raise, or is this,
No, it's the same
It's-
from last year.
what does she do? Well, how often is she there?
She's there once a week on Wednesdays.
For
She
how
does
long?
blood pressures. She's there from 9 to 2. She does blood pressures and tests diabetes pricks and that kind of thing.
We don't offer flu shots.
We do have a flu clinic every
You do?
year.
What line is that in, John, the flu clinic? Is that in the nursing line?
I
or
don't
is
think
that
we've had
in
a flu clinic yet this
That's,
year.
our flu clinic is free. It's brought in
Must be
by
53.
Rite Aid.
Oh, it's a different, okay, it's a different group.
It's free?
Well, because if you're on
Oh, do they,
Medicare,
do they bill the
they
patient's
bill
insurance?
through Rite Aid.
Pardon?
Do they bill the person's insurance?
No.
They just give you the vaccines for free?
They come to
Doesn't
the
the
COE.
state fund
That's
that?
great.
Yeah, that's for the seniors.
so do we have a per hour number?
It works out to be about $30 an appointment. Just doing math.
Yeah, that's for, could be duplicate people,
Could be duplicate people, but
Well,
if you figure per visit, it's about $30.
$30, yeah.
Can't, had to go bad.
What types of programs does she do besides blood pressure? I mean, you said she does stuff in the spring.
Yes, we've had a health and wellness fair that she spearheaded.
Would you have vendors in or something like that? Like
Does
what
it-
types of vendors?
I'm sorry, do we have any other questions on
I'm
this
sorry.
budget?
Just trying to hurry. This is a question on this budget.
For John?
Well, he can't answer them. Thank God she's here.
Well, thank you.
Well, I'm not saying anything else. I'm just throwing a positive spin on everything tonight.
To talk about on the budget?
No, I think I've talked enough. Do you have any other questions for me?
So just one more time on the health agent,
Okay.
that's a 3-year contract. I
Yes.
take it. Last year, do you recall what the raise was?
I want to say 10,000 for the life of the contract. Even that number that number that's on your chart there, that's still below market value for surrounding towns. And we went over this last year that he was so far below the average of the surrounding towns that's why we
So that's a.
brought him up. And it's still lower. Like I said, it's still lower.
Generally, if I saw 8% for a raise, I'd say,
I understand. So look, and I'm in business. I understand what it's all about.
yeah.
Marilyn, can you do me a favor next year? Can you write this all up for John?
I'm not going to be here next year. My term's up.
Give it to whoever the health agent is. All this information, how many hours, how many people, what programs, what they do.
All right, does anyone have any other questions on this
Not
budget?
at this time,
What
no.
are the engineering services?
Okay, that's a good question that I can handle. The engineering services are the perk tests that we do. So the perk tests are performed by an independent engineer for the homeowner or whoever owns the property, and then we have a review engineer that reviews them. And I think we pay $45 a review, and you're not going to touch that even any close for 3 times that amount of money in the real world.
Homeowners paid
Yeah, I
for
was
the
gonna
perk
say,
test.
do we bill
Well, we-
homeowners for that?
No, we don't. Well, they yes, they pay us, but we don't get the money.
Well, the town
The
gets
town gets the money.
All right.
You're going to kill me. I have one more question.
once.
Sure, you can talk. You can ask me any question you want.
This is for both of you. Why isn't the nurse in the Council on Aging budget?
Good question.
It's a very good question, but it's always been something offered to us by the
Board of Health. Yeah, that's
She's managed by the Board of Health. She's not managed by the Council on Aging.
Correct.
okay.
She's an
I'd love
independent.
to know. Okay, not now because Meredith will kill me.
You're
I'd
right.
love to know what the Board of Health does to manage this nurse. Do you hire her? Do you
Oh, she
vet her?
reports to them.
You report to them, but is there a reason? Do you have the expertise? Do you
I think it's required by law.
required by law? Okay,
Who insures her?
She has to have her own insurance.
Right.
she'll just come out of the Board of Health, Council on Aging budget. Not that I and believe me, I
We're not here to rearrange on
Right,
things.
I know.
Let's just look at the budgets and ask the questions that are pertinent.
Any other questions for John? Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you
Sure.
for coming in, John.
You're welcome. You can contact me anytime. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too. Thank you, Marilyn.
I would have run out the door when you had the chance. There's some fired up people over here.
Okay, what budget is this?
All right, I'm sorry. Yes,
Now we're
we are
going to-
moving on to
Oh,
budget
okay, there it is.
5410. How are you, Marilyn?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. 5410.
Now I have this one with the yellow highlight and this one is a, still need to do.
I would
Which one is
have no
which, you
idea why
mean?
you might have two.
Oh, yeah, we do have two.
Well, she's got the yellow
has
one,
got-
so let's go with the yellow one.
This has got percentages in it. And,
Oh, all right. The other one doesn't?
Yeah.
Okay.
So would you start by telling us about some of the changes? We know there are contractual pieces in the first couple of lines, but it looks like clerical salaries and the drivers are up higher than I would normally see.
Well, clerical salaries is pretty much stayed the same, with the exception of one office clerk, and she was given a 50-cent raise, 3.5% rather than a 2.5%. There are two there that are union, which means they would get their step raises, and
Are they changing, is it steps? I'm trying to think of the right
Oh, yeah, the
language.
step,
yeah.
yeah.
So they started with the new rate from their step from this year.
Okay.
So that's
It
why it
just-
would
it
look
shows
different
9%, but, okay.
Right.
All right, and then what about the salaries of the transportation drivers? And how-
The other salaries, for the most part, I was hoping to have $1 across the board for them because most of them are making between $12.61 and $15.22. The drivers would be categorized a little differently because those increases 6.5% for the drivers. Each of them, I did across the board, all the COAs in the area, what do they pay their drivers? And in the industry, it's more like $17 or $18 an hour, so.
Okay.
The others, $1 to bring them up to what federal has named as our minimum wage. I think it would be very difficult to replace them if they left for $12, $15.
Right. All right. How about, there's a $1,000 increase in the heating line?
Yes, we are now open 3 nights a week and on Saturdays at 7 o'clock to about 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh,
And
okay.
we're using more.
Well, that
heating
makes
oil.
sense.
Yeah.
Do you have a lot of people attending during your extended hours?
Yes, we have about between 80 and 100 come in on Saturdays.
Wow.
We have 50 on Tuesday nights. We have about 15 to 20 for the Zumba class on Mondays.
So the community is
20
enjoying the
24
extended
and
hours.
line dancing on Thursday nights.
Is
Oh,
the
that's
Saturday
great.
the Weight Watchers
Yes.
people?
Mhm.
Do they pay you something to
Yes.
use? Oh, good, okay.
That's great, okay. $2,000 decrease in janitorial?
Yes, I changed my custodial help and
Okay.
had a contract that brought it in a little cheaper.
All right. $300 increase for vehicle maintenance?
Yes, our van has been having a few issues this year, and we're looking to replace it next year. And
Isn't it fairly new? Didn't we replace that?
it might seem so, I think it's a 2012, which seems
does
pretty
seem
recent, but it
pretty
gets
recent.
a lot of use. And I talked to Sean, and he said that it's not going to last much longer.
Well, I'm going to talk to Sean and find out.
Well, I guess there's been a lot of issues, and I think that the chassis is having some problems. But he said we can probably get through another year, so we're planning to hopefully put through for a new one next year.
Two.
Be a capital.
Well, we do have we do have a second van. We have ours is a 14 passenger. The second one is a 12 passenger, and that is a granted van through DOT. And sometimes, most of the time, we need the 14 passenger. And also, just to let you know that the schools, the high schools, the middle school borrow it for small groups to go to meets and things like that as well. And I can't do that with the DOT van because there's restrictions.
They're busy all the time, would you say?
Yes, we use 3 days a week for picking up, and we have a supportive daycare program and lunch, and we take them shopping and to doctor's appointments and that type of thing.
right.
Tuesdays frequently we use for a day trip, and then the school we use it on a Saturday or Sunday.
All right.
What's the increase in the postage?
Well, it seems as though
rates,
we have a lot of new 60-year-olds in town.
People.
But once you turn 60, you're put in our database and you're automatically sent a
Do you get
newsletter.
2 at your house or 1?
Oh, please tell me if you're getting 2.
We get 2 at our house. I'd love to get 1.
One.
That we're trying to fix
I'll
that.
tell you later. I won't tell you now. We're on camera. I get 2 at my house. I only need 1.
No,
Two
you don't
different
need your
names.
address.
Yeah, there's two different names.
I'll have
Two
to
different
look at
names.
the address. The name will be there.
Yeah, but it looks
Well,
like
I have
everything
two
else.
different names, too.
Well, that's what we're supposed to look for.
I would
I
hope.
only get one.
That's what we're supposed to look for when we put. But what I'm saying is that
Anyway,
because there's
yeah.
so many 60-year-olds turning 60, that when they put in the database and they automatically receive a newsletter, I've gone from 1,350 mailings to over 1,600 mailings.
Are you saying there's a bubble in the 60-year-olds and in the
Probably.
5-year-olds?
So
they had to
I was
add
just- it was
a class
this.
for the kindergarten class. They had to
18
add another teacher, and now we have to do
Really?
the same thing. Yeah, and we have to do the
18.2%
same thing with the
Kind of
seniors.
raised boom 60 years ago.
Boomers are getting older.
Well, they're
I resemble that remark.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
You said the school borrows the van to take people. Do they pay for that?
They pay for the gas.
They don't pay any use for the.
No.
Okay.
Would you want them to?
Well, she's going to need a new van pretty soon. So, and it's going to hit their budget alone. That's not fair.
It's a thought. Does anyone have any other questions on this budget? I mean, it looks very straightforward.
I think you did a good job.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Just a little statistics that I love to share with people.
Oh, we love
I love
I know you do.
statistics.
I
We're
remember
number
last
two.
year you loved it. It'll take a nanosecond.
Okay.
This year, 2018, my annual report states that we had a total of 34,326 people that we serviced, either through telephone, outreach, visiting, and that's 6,894 from 2017.
separate people or could
Duplicated people. It's walking through the door.
They're using
It's
the
every time they
service.
zip. Yep.
Yeah.
It's a count.
Oh, and one more question.
Oh, hi, Scott.
I know that some other towns put advertising on their
Oh, their
newsletter,
newsletter.
and so they can fund it, and they can do some funding for the Council on Aging. I mean, when I saw that, I get the newsletter, I open it up, and I see this accountant who's going to be there to do taxes, and I know she's doing it. I don't know if she's doing it at a cost or not, but she's getting that nice ad for free.
Whose
And,
newsletter did you see that in?
The Council on Aging.
No, I don't advertise.
I know. Why isn't there advertising to raise money?
Oh, why isn't there? Because we found doing a little bit of research a few years ago that it was more cost-effective for us to do it ourselves. We also have people in-house folding it. That they would having it done for you, having it printed. That's what that costs. What those ads are for is for the cost of printing and collating and mailing. And I have a huge.
So you lay it out all by yourself.
I do yes. I lay it up, and then I have two people proof it, hopefully effectively, and then we have a group of volunteers that come in and fold it, tape it, label it, put it out for nothing.
Or were you thinking advertising to raise revenue?
Yes, but I wasn't thinking of
Having to send it out to print.
right. I mean, if
Because
you're laying it
they
out
would
yourself,
require
then
to-
why
yeah.
can't you just throw a couple of ads in there, an extra page or two, and throw a couple of ads, and they're going to send you camera-ready work. You just have to slap it in there.
Right.
Where does it fall under? Which category? The newsletter?
The printing and whatever.
Well, so it would just be office supplies for the paper, right?
Office supplies for paper.
And postage for the
My
postage.
time for the layout.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. We're very proud of it.
It comes to the woman who used to live there.
Oh, really? That's another thing. People don't call,
History. History right there.
That's so funny.
Yeah, looks good. Good
All right.
job.
Well, thank you very much for coming in tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for sticking around, John, just in case.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Take care.
Night, John.
All right.
Water department. This one's always fun. Oh, this is what I tried this.
Yeah, that's not until 7:25. They may not be here yet.
Oh, the mortgage.
I keep looking up for a clock.
I am too. I asked them last year if they'd put it back.
You have a phone?
Well, can we talk about? Do you want to talk about the?
Thanks, Scott. You're full of it
Just trying
tonight.
to help.
You want to talk about the warrant articles?
Yes, we can.
I mean, we'll just use our time, dead time.
We'll also
here.
talk about the FinCom bylaw. I know
Yes, what's the
I was
status?
supposed to reach out and speak with some of the board members, and I know Marilyn Raleigh reached out to me several times over the past 2 weeks, and I was so swamped at work I never got back to her. So Jerry's going to take over this project of trying to get the the FinCom bylaw, work together with the committee and see
Right. If they don't want to do it, then they don't want to do it.
if there's a way we can work it out.
We'll talk with them.
Good. Thanks
Yeah.
for taking it on, Jerry.
Yes, thank you for doing that.
Doesn't sound like an exciting project.
Whatever. I'll look into it. I'm going to do some research and stuff. I'll look into it and see what I come up with.
But Marilyn's been very responsive. I'm sure she'll watch tonight. She'll
Sure.
hopefully between all of us we'll find a common ground.
Good.
Oh, look at that. 3.26.
Mary, while we wait for the water fund, do you want me to go over the budgets that I normally do?
Yes, please.
Oh,
Are you
excellent.
okay if I do it from here since this?
Sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So, under your 905 budget, I handle all of those.
Yep.
Under
The 905
budget,
time-wise.
9 o'clock.
Look at Jan. Look at your 905 time and those budgets. Yeah.
Starting with 1965.
1965.
So 1965 Economic Development Commission, that budget we level funded at $1,850. They have not met the last handful of years.
Is there anyone interested in taking that on that you've heard of? No.
So quite frankly,
That's too bad.
Once we go through the budget review process with the Board of Selectmen, we discussed it last night, obviously it's their call, but my guess is we're just gonna zero it out because we've been funding it for a handful of years and nobody's meeting and doing anything with it. I just think that we should all just be cognizant that at some date in the later future, we hopefully will have that, and we'll have to fund it.
Right.
But in the meantime, we might as well just.
I love the billboard that says West Bridgewater, a great place to live, work, learn, and play, or whatever it is. So I was hoping from that type of advertisement that it would have stimulated some sort of economic growth or someone wanting to take charge.
I think that, if anything, we'd have to invest in probably a full-time
Person, yeah,
person to really,
drive it.
So next budget is town council. We level funded at $87,000, the same as last year.
It's budget 1510.
And, I think we're doing a pretty good job with that. Years ago, we used to always exceed 100,000, and we haven't done that for the last handful of years.
So there's no big lawsuits coming this year?
Well, that could change in about 15
In a
minutes.
heartbeat.
Yeah.
But,
So you've level funded it, is that what you said?
Correct.
At only 87,000, that is low.
Because again, it used to be six figures.
Right, for many years.
The next one is the veterans budget. The only increase.
Veterans, sorry, 5430.
The only increase in that is just a contractual for, she's a member of the collective bargaining agreement, and so she's going up a step.
Yeah, it's too bad they weren't in order.
I know,
Yeah, I know.
I saw that earlier. Next year, we'll certainly make sure that happens. It's kind of difficult, but next year, I'm hoping we can do everything on iPads.
That would be fantastic.
Next year we need the detail. Is that out of the realm of the finance committee to get the detail of the spending? Because, I mean, it's so hard to make a decision on whatever. I mean, we're not picking apart their budgets. We're not telling them how to manage their departments, but we just see end numbers. We don't.
So what's
So-
the 8% increase? Say that again.
The
On
clerical.
veterans budget,
Yeah.
the only line that I believe that's up is her salary
Right,
line.
it is.
And that's just because she goes from, she gets a 2.5% raise, but then she goes up one step. So it's just that's the way it falls.
Was that
throughout
her
the year.
deal? I mean,
Yeah.
because the fire department's in here arguing to have her go up a step, and we're like, this is the biggest question we've had.
So that's a different classification. That's moving from one job title to another job.
Oh,
This
okay.
is just over a period of years, you just automatically move up.
Okay.
This is the issue.
Okay.
that position is state
You
mandated.
want to come back? Or do you want to finish?
Yeah, no, we should finish.
Yeah, because it's
We're
not.
just going to finish up our budgets.
Yeah, because it's not time yet.
The next one is cable TV committee.
2713.
It's
Table 1560.
Leak notice.
It's
I needed to
$11.
call you and thank you for that. It's a nice service,
Mo,
because it wasn't.
Mo, sorry. We're trying to, 1560?
Yep, 1560, so that's $1,100, which is level funded year over year.
All right.
Next budget after that is the planning board. That planning board is actually down a few dollars. It's just because the secretary that was in there is no longer a member of the union. She is retired, so she's just an employee at will, so she doesn't receive the longevity benefits anymore
Wow.
that she used to receive. That's gone down. The Board of Appeals budget, that's basically level funded. The only increase is again, for the clerical person, 2%.
Right, 2.5. Oh, yeah, 2% overall.
Rent control is a small budget. It's only $3,000 or $4,000. It looks like it's up 16%, which is a big number, but it's only $500. And that's because both parks are undergoing new rental agreements. And the girl or the lady that is the secretary there, she's only budgeted for a couple of hours a week, and she's had to come for more hours. And you'll recall the last 2 years, you've had to do a transfer to cover her hours. It gets only a couple hundred, but I can't keep on coming to the FinCom year after year after year because it's no longer extraordinary and unforeseen.
Right.
I mean, they're working through a few more hours.
So what are they working for? I'm sorry.
Rent control board.
Yeah.
So the rent control board oversees the mobile home parks.
Yeah, I
So-
mean, why is it more? I thought I heard you say more hours.
It's more hours because they've had 2 new agreements that have been being negotiated with the tenant. So tenants are both sides are being a little bit more aggressive in trying to negotiate new contracts, so rent control has to meet more. So, again, it's not a lot of hours, so it's a couple $100, but that's one. ADA committee is $500, that's been level funded year over year. Municipal building needs committee is $1,486, that's level funded year over year. In the town accountant, the only change is a contractual, that's up to 2.86%.
Is that still a part-time position? How's that working out?
Yeah.
It's working out very well.
That's great.
Oh.
It's working out very well.
I just wanted to flip to that budget before we move over it.
Yeah.
Let's see. I know there's more in this one. Appointed official, those are both contractual, appointed official and clerical? Okay. Now, she's retired, if I understand correctly.
Correct.
She's on board working another year? I thought this was meant to be a short term.
Yeah, but she does really good, and for what we pay her, the previous town accountant that was here full time was making more 3 years ago.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
So
Right.
it's just a really good deal for us. It's a great deal for her. It works out
Great.
for everybody. So at this point, she'd like to continue it, and I'd like to keep her on.
That's fantastic.
And there's no benefits.
Right, that's the big savings.
There's no
Yeah.
health insurance.
Yeah.
Right. All right, anybody have any questions on those budgets? Nope. All right, then let's go back to Water Department, budget 4,500. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hey, guys.
All right, let's make sure we can all find the budget first. 4,500.
They got the updated sheet.
No, they won't know about that, so we'll say that when we get there.
Uh-oh.
No, Rick, we put it in today, so they have it.
Oh, I've got two versions.
Yeah, just use the most recent version.
The one on top? I was gonna say there's no date.
All right.
All right, so we'll supersede the,
What's the bottom line? I just want to make sure I'm the right one.
that the department, 2024013.
Okay, so it's
Is
the
that the
right
right
one.
number?
That doesn't sound right to
It
me.
can't be, because you went up $8,000 for the GIS.
Yeah, I have 2032013.
That's correct.
What?
Yeah,
That's
so the
not,
bottom line number should be 2032013.
both budgets in here are the same.
3,
Yeah.
2,
I know. We'll explain the difference.
2032.
Yeah, I don't have that.
I've got 202024.
Oh, yeah.
2024.
Thank you. I didn't get to it fast enough. I did now.
Did you find the budget? I didn't find the budget. Am I missing it? It's not the right number then.
I have two of them. I'll give you one of mine.
I have two, but neither one has the
Right number.
Right,
Yeah.
because the water department voted Monday night to increase one of their lines 8,000, and we got the information, they increased the line here, but they must not have.
But they didn't,
Yeah,
the
sure.
formula
It
didn't
must
work.
not
Okay.
have been the formula.
So-
So that's
Okay.
why I know it's $8,000
Okay.
more.
All right.
Okay,
And it's in the GIS line, I know they
Okay.
took over.
okay.
All right.
Well, then let's start with talking about the changes. It looks like the first two lines, are those both contractual?
Yes.
Clerical salaries, laborer. And then office manager, you have increasing 53,000, 54,000, 24%. What's going on there?
Wait a minute, office man? No.
Labor.
Am I?
No,
Oh,
you gotta-
okay.
Yeah.
That's labor.
So what's the?
Why is the labor going up?
So the labor line is 277,286.
Yes.
So that is going up, so we're going to hire a 30-hour part-time labor technician, hopefully a skilled person with a skill we can use.
As opposed to a skill you can't use?
Well, we've been hiring people in so if you hire somebody who has training already, you can be getting a problem employee from another town. So we usually hire and then train them within. And every plant is different, so it's institutional learning. You learn once you're in the area. So this time, there are skills that get stuff off of my back, and that's what I'm hoping to do.
So the 30-hour part-time person doesn't get benefits? then?
No, they're benefited
They
at
are
30 hours.
benefited.
Anything above
So
20
you're
is
looking to
benefited.
expand your manpower.
Yes.
You're looking to increase the labor.
There are 4 people and me, so I spend as much time in the street as I try to do doing these spreadsheets and giving you extra so I confuse you a little. Not really, but I work in the street just as much, so another person will give me 2 separate crews that can be out doing 2 separate things.
Why are you looking to hire someone at 30 hours instead of full-time?
Because I can see the budget going up through the year, so in the beginning, at 30 hours, it's going to be the hours that are going to help me through peak times, and if they stay for overtime or if they stay longer, then it'll just get eaten out of my overtime budget, hopefully. They won't get paid overtime because they didn't reach 40 hours, but they'll still get paid that way.
So how much did your overtime budget increase?
It did not increase anything this year.
So then how would you be able to potentially pay a 30-hour person overtime?
I'm hoping.
But where would the money come from if it's
Well,
not budgeted?
hopefully, we'll see. I haven't made it through this year at that because this overtime budget is a new. Last year, the salaries changed and a lot of things changed, so I estimated that we were going to be at the number that's in there. I haven't hit it yet, but I'm about 10,000 away, so.
So you
we
didn't
still have
budget
6
enough?
months to go.
So you're saying you didn't budget enough?
I'm hoping I did.
Which line are we talking about? The overtime?
All right, so we stopped jumping around. You jump back to the overtime, yes. I think the overtime budget will cover whatever, and if not, then I don't hold the person over.
I think I'm getting confused.
I'm hiring a 30-hour part-time person to add to my crew. They're going to be here during the peak hours between either 8 and 1 or 9 and 2 when we're really going flat out at whatever we're going to be doing. After that, you're on either side of rush hour, and we try to stay out of the road. Doesn't always happen that way, but that's what my goal is.
Why 30 hours instead of 40?
I'm trying something. So the person, I have an idea of the skill set that I want, and that works for that person.
So you already have a person
So you
in
have somebody
mind?
I
identified?
do, but we would still advertise that there could be somebody with better skills out there than this person.
So,
Oh, boy.
so,
This is gonna make a total, I just wanna make sure I understand, so you said you have 4 people plus yourself. and
That's
this will
correct.
make it 5.
So for every mile of road in this town, there's at least 1 pipe under it. There's more likely 2 pipes under it. So I'm trying to cover an entire town. I've got 70 miles of pipe.
I'm still trying to understand why you would want a 3/4 FTE person as opposed to a full-time
If it doesn't
person.
work next year, then I'll ask you to increase it to 40 hours.
Yeah, but I'm trying to understand why. What made you come to the conclusion that you needed a 30-hour-a-week person as opposed to 40?
I just picked an arbitrary number so that I didn't.
Okay, that's not going to work.
So then I'll make it 40. I'll adjust it up to 40. Does that end the?
No, I mean, obviously you're not getting the work done that you need to get done.
I want to get more work done. That's correct. So this year, we spent a lot of time rehabbing a station. We saved a lot of money, in the 6 figures, doing the work internally ourselves. That meant that we didn't get outside as much as we would have liked to, and at the end of the year, when we would have been out there, the transmission went in the van that we needed, so that kind of croaked everything, and then the weather closed on us.
So you're thinking that with an additional 30 hours person, it gives you.
I'm
more
going to
time
have
to
2
do-
separate crews. To cover myself with any OSHA liabilities, anytime we deal with chemicals, there should be 2 people together. So I lose 2 people right away every morning for at least 2 hours. If something goes wrong, then I could lose them for the entire day fixing something. The chemicals we work with are very bad.
Well, you said you currently have 4 people,
That's correct.
so you would have 2 teams of 2.
That's correct. With somebody, there'd be 1 extra person to help somewhere.
Plus yourself. So
Plus myself. I'm still going to go out.
you have 2 teams of 2 already.
That's correct. But
But
if I
you were
lose a
saying-
team of 2 into the station, if I have 3 people, I'm still another person. I'll go out. I've replaced a hydrant with just 1 other person before. It's not.
You're not making a very good case for why you need an additional person. And I'm not trying to be critical. I'm just trying to understand what has changed, why do you need it, what made you come to
We've
the
always
conclusion.
basically been understaffed. I have a hard time getting everything. I have to do all of this, and it's getting so much more regulatory that it's becoming cumbersome on me.
So you're trying to relieve some
My
of
s-
your administrative
Right.
burden, so you can focus a little bit more on the administrative stuff and still
Right.
have coverage for the operational stuff? Is that what you're trying to do?
That's correct.
And without putting in words, you're probably doing 70 hours a week and you're looking for relief.
Yes, I do a lot of trades work. We don't hire a lot of outside people. I hire specialized people when I do it, but I do most of the trades work myself, and I'm trying to teach them, but there are some things you can't teach people, so that's why you look for a special skill set, so that nobody gets hurt.
You think they do more of your administrative stuff?
They're not going to do more of that, but I'd rather them do more of the electrical, the instrumentation, the plumbing, the computer programming, those things that tie me down, because I need time to teach them since they don't have the skills themselves.
Would they be a member of the union?
They would be a member of the union.
How would that work with the collective bargaining agreement? Can you
I have
have a
not.
30-hour person? Is that even allowed?
I haven't asked
It
them,
is. Okay.
but I will ask them before I even do that. If they don't like it, then they can say no, and it dies there. I'm not here to fight with anybody.
It sounds like you're trying to be a little bit strategic in hiring somebody for 30 hours, see if you can get away with
Yeah.
that. If you need him for a little bit more, you want to maybe try to fund some of that a little bit more out of another line in your budget. And you may come back next year and say, I used him 40 hours a
Right.
lot of time. Is that what you're thinking?
I'm hoping that's what occurs, yes.
All right, let's move
I
on.
will say, to support him on this a little bit, one of the issues we're trying to deal with is to get him doing more of the administrative, having him be able to do the superintendent role more.
Right,
than
no, I
he's
know
been
you're
able
very
to.
hands-on.
So that's, that is also in support of that, which is something we're trying to push for as the commission.
That makes sense.
And it sounds like a little bit more training for some of your guys, if you're more available to train them, that'll build their
Right.
skill set too, right?
Yes.
All right, let's see, we were on to the overtime.
So what do you do with temporary salaries?
So right now, we hired a GIS person, and so when you get down to my GS line, you're not going to see it spent. I'm overspending my temporary salary right now on that GIS person. It was costing us a fortune to hire out to the engineering, and I wasn't getting a lot of work done from them. So it was better for the town for me to hire a trained GIS person. And she has worked out very well.
All right, what's the increase in retirement contribution?
I wish I could say that I was leaving, but
Yeah,
that's
so
town.
They don't
They
set
don't know.
that.
Yeah, nothing
No,
to
so
do with
Plymouth
that.
County sends us the numbers,
Okay,
and so when I do the benefits, I go over it as well, but basically what they have determined when they did pension reform.
That's
is
right.
that
That's
Our
right.
retirement assessment goes up a little over 8%
Anything
every year
up
until
here.
2033. And at 2033, it's gonna be balanced. And at that point, it should drop to only an administrative expense. We'll see if their actuarial tables are correct, but so every municipality gets hit with that.
So I'm sorry if you're going to have to repeat something. So the temporary salary is was or is the GIS person?
Yes.
And so under that line, what is?
So the GIS line is going up quite a bit also.
Yeah, can we get there when we get there? So that we worked on, so we just crossed the temporary line, right? Was that up at the top? Yes.
Actually, I think we crossed it a while ago. I just didn't get a chance
All
to
right,
ask.
so I'm using that right now for my GIS person. So you're gonna see my GIS line is underspent because I'm not hiring an engineering firm and paying them $5,000 to not do much work at all.
Well, you didn't spend much in temporary salaries the last couple of years either. I mean, 1,700.
Right, I found a new way to do it, because everything that we do, we have to pay prevailing rate wage. But you don't want to keep hiring part-time employees here and there and letting them go, but I've tried to get away from the prevailing rate wage. It's expensive, it's costly,
So if you're moving the GIS person under the temp, why are we going to 15,000 under GIS?
can we
Work your
work
way
our way
down.
down? I will explain it.
Fine. Yeah,
all right,
go
why
ahead.
is allowances and stipends going up?
So that's by contract, and so I have a couple of people that are increasing their licenses, and if I hire a person, they're gonna have to be licensed, so they'll be holding, so the only amount I added was the minimum, the grade 2 licenses amounts.
Okay. Fuel, looks like it's going up 31%. What makes you think the fuel's gonna increase so much?
Where are you?
5210.
5210.
So I looked back at 2018 in my fuel. Oh, heating.
Eating.
Heating fuel,
Yeah.
sorry.
So in 2018, I spent $22,969. This winter is turning out to be cold too because I've been watching the numbers. So we're running up at that now.
Oh, I see. You just picked the same number. Okay,
Yep.
I can see that.
The electricity, the next line increased too. It's just above that.
You
The
have
wa-
to pay for water.
No, so
That just seems wrong.
it's Easton. So basically, we have customers in Easton. It's our pipe, it's Easton's water. So Easton charges them, they send us the bill, we charge our customers. So we have to pay Easton for their water, and then we charge our customers back. That's what that is.
Okay. What's the increase on vehicle repairs and maintenance?
So my vehicles they're not getting higher mileage, but they're getting run down from plowing. So we're welding them together. The small diesel truck it's currently running on about 4 cylinders when it starts up, and eventually you hope that it gets to all 8 by the time you make it about 3 miles down the road. But my vehicles need replacement. I need time to go out and price them yet. That's not going to happen this year because I don't have
How many
time.
vehicles does
So we
water
have
department
2 dump trucks. We have a F550 and we have an F800. So at some point, but I can't afford to replace everything at once. There just isn't enough money in the town for that. So I can't, off the top of my head, I think the small dump truck is a 2005. I think the bigger one, I want to say 84, but it could be a 94.
1994.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have to be 94, not 84.
They don't have a lot of mileage, but the wear and tear. The older dump truck is like I said last night, it's like driving a tank. It's not a very nice vehicle to be in.
Are you utilizing your truck to plowing, or that was the purpose
Yes,
of
it
it?
is. It does get utilized, and it's utilized by the crew. It's not my specific truck. I send it out because we don't have a trailer to put our equipment in. My truck is utilized by everybody in the shop. I don't say that's my truck, stay out of it. I encourage them to use it.
Now, you said something about plowing. Are you? I'm sorry to
Yeah.
keep going back to this
Yep.
30-hour a week, but you're talking about potentially increasing your manpower. You're creating another position, so I'm just struggling with that.
So I don't pay for plowing. That's when I loan my guys out to the highway group.
So would this 30-hour a week person also do that?
That would be up to them and the town whether they want to accept them in to do that. And if they did, then they're paid by the highway group, not by me.
Would that change a precedence or
Say
set a
DPW,
precedence?
sorry
or-
about that. I'm a precedence of what?
I guess because they're all full-time as opposed to three-quarter time. I don't know. I'm just
If they go
spitballing.
over there, so they don't get to overtime till they get past 40 hours anyway. So
right.
if they got this person and they had made their 40 hours, they're getting a bonus. They don't have to pay them overtime yet.
You know, how much more would it be to pay a person between 30 hours and 40 hours? I mean, how
Maybe
much more?
$10,000.
1/4 or more, whatever.
Including benefits.
The benefits, I'm not sure. They're probably about the same.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
benefits wouldn't increase because if,
Right.
say somebody takes health insurance, they
Right.
get it whether they're 20 hours or 30 hours.
They do?
Yeah,
Yeah.
20
So
hours.
this
lease is 20, wow.
So I wonder if you would be better off trying to go for the full-time person as opposed to a 30-hour a week person.
I would've
Not that
put-
I'm encouraging additional expense. Let's make that clear.
If I thought it would have been less discussion, I would have went for the 40.
I think it's
Well,
good
I'm just
outside
trying
the
to-
box thing.
So if I,
just trying
any,
to
any
rationalize.
year if it
You're just
didn't
trying
work
to
out,
save it.
so any year if it didn't work out, I'll be coming back and going to
Yeah.
40 hours with it.
Well, like you said, you arbitrarily picked the number. Like you
Well,
just
I didn't really arbitrarily. I set a number that I knew that I want somebody between 9 and 2. I need somebody in the hours when we're going to go out and we don't start digging the road until after 9 o'clock. So those, I knew those were the hours when I need another body.
Now, you're not customizing this role because of the person you have in mind. This is your actual need,
Yep.
not to
I
accommodate the
can't
person
dig-
coming in.
because of the buses, we avoid in rush hour. We all know what it's like to get on 106. It's so we avoid opening up the street until after 9 o'clock in any street.
Right, right.
So that's basically it. Fit in that.
Makes sense.
All right. Sorry, didn't mean to keep going back to
No.
that.
The equipment repairs, so you're thinking you're gonna put some work into the trucks to just keep them going?
Yep, I'm keeping them going. I hope to get 8 cylinders out of the current 4 cylinders.
Is that something that the town mechanic does, or do you have to send it out?
No, we give it to the town mechanic, but it's been, the truck has been
It's the
it's been a
1984.
budget drain
90.
for a while now.
It's 25 years old.
It's a diesel, and that year was just notorious for not, and I know without a doubt I can get a letter from Tom to say both of those trucks need to go.
Right, right.
I mean, it didn't
Sure,
help
just
me
based
that
on their
I had
age.
the transmission go in the van. The vans are the same vans that we had with the other one, but the ball joints go yearly. The maintenance on them is
Starting to
horrendous.
throw good money after bad, or
Well, they're still running. They're still low mileage. They're not rotted. They're not rusted. So we keep
a little
going.
bit longer. Yeah.
All right, there's an increase in engineering services.
All right, so it's very costly to use engineers. That's why the GIS person, we hired that. So we've been using engineers as we move along. DEP is requiring us to use more. My water permit's coming up for renewal, and we're going to need an engineer to help us through that. But that hasn't occurred. I was required to do a level 1 survey. That cost me $3,000. So it eats the money up fast. 5,000 hopefully will cover it. Hopefully.
All right, what's this next one? A reduction of 69,000 for the engineering and pump testing.
So we put that line on there. That was when we were looking for a new water source.
Right.
At the time, the town considered it better than to go in an article because we would have had to list all of the deeds. So it became a line item so that we could move around town and look at water. And we have been working our way through that. At this point, we're pretty much through the progress of looking where we're going to be looking for water because the state really mandates where you can look. So they've narrowed us down. We have a couple of things that we're looking at. It's all up to how the state pushes back at us. So at this time, we're probably going to move towards an article in our search for water.
So that's why you're not going for this money this year?
That's correct.
Okay, you're looking for it in the warrant article. Okay,
Yeah.
I follow you. All right, the increase on GIS engineering and supplies.
So the town is looking to hire a GIS person. They've asked us to fund 30% of this person. That line, so there are fees in there, and if they're not moving fast enough, I'm probably going to have to increase that line by about $3,000 because there's licensing and renewal fees that are going to get caught up in there. The water department is usually paid for most of it. We don't pay for the licenses that aren't ours, but we pay for the software updates and everything. So I just remembered that yesterday, but I didn't want to slow anything down because it was going so well. But I'm pretty sure that line should go up by about $3,000.
So I'm a little confused, because we said the GIS person was in a temporary salary, so do we have 2 GIS people?
We do not. We will not have 2 GIS people.
So
So this is, as we move into the next budget year, the town is hoping to hire a GIS person. Then I won't need a GIS person because the town, and I'll be paying for 30% of it, I should
Right.
be getting my services from there.
But that's where that,
Well,
that's
Right.
where that
one
15,000 is, right? That
That's where the-
15,000,
Yeah.
That's what, and it's gonna go out to pay for the town's
30%.
GIS.
Okay, so what will the temporary salaries be then next year?
It would stay at whatever it currently is.
And what is it, if it's not paying for GIS, what would it pay
So
for?
until the town gets moving, I might carry her over and then she'd be transition out and she'd be gone. If I had my way, I'd like to hire a part-time electrician so I didn't have to do that anymore, but like I chase back, if I have to hire somebody, it's prevailing rate wage, which is a lot more than I make sitting here.
Right.
So
You a licensed electrician?
I am not a licensed electrician.
Is that
So we manipulate our equipment so that we don't have to really touch the electricity.
Okay.
I have a lot of twist lock plugs so that we don't have to go into cabinets, we don't have to do anything.
So what do you use an electrician for?
We have a lot of electricity. $74,000 worth. Everything that we do uses electricity. All of our pumps are all 3-phase. I don't know if you noticed the other day, I forget which day it was, but Manley Street had a power outage, and it phased throughout the town.
Yeah, we had.
It actually, your electricity value, it took out a phase. You could see it going up. Nobody realizes that that happens, but voltage increases or decreases, and you don't see it. But that day, you saw it.
Yeah.
And that's when you lose TVs, you lose electronic equipment, and you don't understand why that brand-new TV just fried out.
Well, again, you know what I'd say, if you need, if you're doing electrical work.
I'm so
that, you know,
confused
you're-
right now.
you know,
Yeah,
need
I'm not
someone
really
at a
following it.
prevailing
I'm
rate,
confused if
then you
they're-
get 'em.
Gonna use it for an electrician.
He said he would if he has to drop her. He said if he wasn't using
Well,
the
the
GIS
15th,
and
well,
temporary.
let's put it this way, so if the GIS doesn't happen on July 1st, the amount's gonna be prorated anyway. So it's gonna be it's gonna be moot. It's gonna come out of the GIS line regardless, because it's gonna be prorated.
From
It
what
would
we
be
hear in the
prorated.
GIS for next year, we'll be funding your 30% that's going to the town.
Right.
Not
Right, so if
for
it doesn't
what's
happen
worth.
until
He'll
December-
still be using hers
And
temporary.
I'd still be using her right up until.
So then that could come out of the GIS line, because we've already allotted 15,000 to it. Because the 30% at that point, would be less than 15,000.
If he needs to give the 30%, he doesn't want to take from that line item if that's what the expectation from the town is. That's
But
why
if
he's
it's-
using it out of his temporary.
But if it
At
was
least
not a
it's
full
involved,
year, it's gonna be less, right?
to be honest.
She is correct,
But with the exception that, David, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not like you actually have somebody that can walk in that you know is gonna take that salary that day. It could be it goes 3 months and the person comes in and they need all that money for the budget for that year. And the problem with the way water works with the GIS is they're using it all the time. And every time they dig
Yes.
a hole, every time they do something else, they
Yes.
have to update it. So if it takes 3 months, we'd rather have the person they're updating out of that line, and then that 15 is there for whatever happens.
So
in
you're
the town
covering
to
yourself for the
support. Yeah,
transition.
basically being
Basically,
covered.
yeah.
So what's the increase in office supplies?
That line never seems to go down.
Where are we?
Computers were gonna save the world, we weren't gonna have any paper anymore, yet we do.
Okay.
I can't,
Let's go back to it. Let's start on, where were we? We just got through the GIS data processing. Why don't you go back and just keep going down? Data processing is, whatever. The actual was 5,800, then it went to 9,000. It's being level funded at 9,000. The data processing services.
What is that?
that's when we send out the bills, and I think, I can't, it could be that we're sending out the bills and we're also paying Lighthouse to take in our money.
Okay.
Legal services?
Is level.
Level.
Network tech, laboratory.
We're actually all level.
Yeah, it's level the rest of the
Right,
way.
right, all the way down to office supplies, right.
Backflow testing,
Um,
increasing.
Yeah, I'm just trying to stay ahead of that. We actually make money on it, so whatever, we have to pay the backflow tester to go out and she does her work. And then we back charge the customer after the fact. But I'm trying to stay ahead of it. In 18, it was 9,900 spent out, so I've just moved it up a little. Everything, I wish everything went down in cost, but it doesn't. It goes up. I'm just trying to stay ahead of it. Everything else is level right up until
And the bump in the chemicals?
the chemicals.
Going up.
So one tanker of
reasonable.
potassium hydroxide is $15,000. In the summertime, I can be having a tanker a month or every 3 weeks. It depends. Last summer was rained every 3 days, so we used a little less. But if this summer comes out full bore sun, and we're all hoping for, because my
It's
son.
dependent on how many gallons you're pumping.
That's correct.
It's a ratio, right?
Yep. We've changed some of our formulations of chemicals too, so that's going to cost us a little more. We're trying to deal with water quality issues, and hopefully this takes care of that.
All right, it looks like there's an increase on tank inspection.
All right, so I had a tank, I had the Walnut Street tank inspected. I'm required to do it every so many years. This year, I'm either gonna do the 500,000 or the 5 million. So it cost me, I think, around $4,500 to have a 1 million gallon tank inspected. They haven't given me the quote back yet to see what it's gonna cost me, but I have 2 tanks on site that have to be inspected. If they tell me the 5 million's gonna cost a lot more than 5,000, then I'm gonna move them over to the little one, and I should be able to get that done for the 5,000.
Okay. Equipment replacement, that's gone up? Is that just basic repair? Wait a minute, you've already spent 19,000, almost 20,000 on equipment replacement when your request was only or it was approved 6,000. So you think the 8,500 that you're requesting is going to be enough?
Yes, so I look back into 2018, and we, that's the line I'm going off of.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
So what was the big bump?
Yeah,
We
why is
had
it
a
so much?
production anomaly. We've got that under control, so that should be all set. This year, we should be
What
not.
do you call it again?
A production
Anomaly.
That sounds like something you don't want to talk about.
I thought it was something a spaceship went through.
Well, that's a black hole.
No, could you
Time warp.
explain that a little bit?
Yeah,
So we
'cause
had
that's
a
a big
leak.
expense.
And we looked hard for it. It was in a place that was hard to find, but we did find it eventually.
It's always behind the wall in the corner.
It was.
Right.
Yeah,
The whole world was wet this summer. It was impossible.
yeah. Trust me, we looked hard. I even had people outside in looking, and they went right past it. We did find it, though.
Was it big? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was huge. But wasn't part of that the valves at Manley Street, or was that in a different line?
No, that was on Manley Street.
No, but I mean, remember the valves of the plant? Is that part of it?
Yeah, that could be equipment replacement. Also, I have, yeah, that's part of the budget surplus. They haven't seen that yet. We won't get there.
Well, the ones we replaced already. All right.
All right, let's see. Other changes, interest, that's gone up quite a bit.
I don't have any control over the interest.
Oh, okay, that must have come from Scott.
Yeah.
Yes, it's just if you borrow, over the last couple of years, you borrowed some money, so now the payment's come due.
All right, going down on principal interest.
Some are down.
Did you have any other
What are the
questions?
decreases of the iron and
No, I'm just gonna.
No, I think that's a
General
principal
comment.
portion
Yeah,
of the
that's
payment.
debt, yeah.
Yeah, the debt. Wait, so I heard you mumble something about water surplus. What was that?
Surplus.
Surplus?
Oh, no, so the budget supplement, it's an article for the special town meeting.
Oh, okay, yes. We haven't talked about it yet among us, but let's jump
So
forward.
what he was talking about is part of that.
Oh, okay.
What did he
So
talk
before
about?
we get to the warrant articles, does anyone have any other questions on the budget?
No.
Okay, then let's go to those warrant articles. Where are they? Oh, should be.
In the package? Yeah.
One, two. So number 3 is water department. So you're looking
3
for
and
money
4.
for the current year operating budget.
Correct.
How much?
115,000.
How come?
So we had a production anomaly.
Yeah, you already used that one. No, not taking it twice.
Did get laughs out of you. We had a leak, and it cost us. And
Yeah, you
we
used
chased
that
it.
one
Where was the
already
leak?
too.
Where was the leak?
What?
Where was the leak?
It was on Manley Street, so it was buried between the Walnut Street tank and the Manley Street plant. So we couldn't find it because there was no decrease in pressure. When the plant shut down, the tank fed it backwards.
Yeah.
It was not part of our system. It was on a sprinkler line for a building, so it was not that easily found. It was also buried under 3 feet of clay, so it wasn't surfacing. We did all sorts of correlations. We searched all the bridge. I gave up walking through the fields after I picked the 5th tick off of me. I just figured I wanted to live. But we looked very hard. We had outside firms come in to look with us, and they passed over it and didn't hear it. You can't always acoustically find them. If they don't surface, acoustically, you can't always find them either because of the types of pipe we have. If we had all iron pipe, we might have been able to find it that way, but we didn't.
How often do these production anomalies occur?
They don't, usually they surface. This one, because of the way it was broken, it spread out horizontally, so it didn't penetrate the clay layer, so it stayed under the clay. It was also beside a running brook, which didn't help any either, but it didn't surface in the brook either.
So
That's good, we'll have the EPA after us otherwise.
Yeah.
what's the cost? The cost was what you spent to find it,
So-
repair it, and all that?
No, the cost is my cost of producing that amount of water.
So the $115,000 is for,
Is for chemicals, equipment, and supplies to have kept me running through that.
Oh, because it was just all leaking out.
Right. No matter what, I still had to keep feeding the town. We never stopped daily. We had meetings trying to figure out where we could look next.
So you pumped more from somewhere else?
We pumped more.
I guess I don't understand the
The
expense.
pumps were running around the clock. They never stopped.
We
We
pretty
couldn't,
much-
we couldn't keep up. There were some days that the tanks were going backwards. We pumped all we could pump. And so every time we were pumping a gallon of water, chemicals had to be added.
Oh, so it's the
Then-
chemicals, the electricity,
Then the chemical-
I see,
we have-
okay.
There's, 9 pumps, chemical pumps,
Right.
booster pumps, and he had booster pumps burning out in the plants because they were never shutting off, just trying to supply the water. Each one of those, what are they, 5,000 apiece?
Yeah, they're about 5,000 apiece.
So he was going through $5,000 pumps, every time we met, there was another pump that was going. DEP says you can't have these pumps without having replacement pumps on hand because you can't pump water without getting the chemicals in. So he's not buying one, he's buying 2. You always gotta have a backup. So he was losing pumps, and we were pumping more chemicals than we ever pumped.
So I have about 5 lines that went over. So what I did was I went back through my 2017 warrant articles, and I calculated from March until June 31st what I had spent on those lines in 2017, and I then added it to my current lines that are overrun to come up with that 115,000 number. On top of that is, in the Manley Street plant, it's reached its age. I have 24 valves in there that have reached their age. They're now beginning to suddenly just rot out and blow holes out. And then I have to take a filter offline or I take the plant offline. When I order one of these valves, it's 3 weeks to 4 weeks to get one in stock. That means that I lose 400,000 gallons of water a minute that I can't put in the system. So I'm ordering 4 valves to be in stock to replace any of the 24 that I have.
Okay. All right, so that explains Article 3. What's Article 4? A new replacement well for Station 4.
So we have a well that's capable of producing a lot of water, except when they put the casing in for the well, they collapse the fines on it, so it runs dry in the summertime. This past summer, we were lucky we had 3 days of rain. Every third day it rained out. So it kept the table up enough that I couldn't. But what happens is when we don't have enough rain, I need that pump. Even if it's giving me 25 gallons a minute, I throttle a gate valve in front of it, and then my amperage goes up and I use a lot more electricity, but I still get my 25 gallons a minute. So we're going after to have the well replace it. It's already permitted, but they make us jump through hoops now. You can't just, the well's there, you can't just drill another one. You have to go through all of the permitting.
So how much money
What's
are
the
you
cost
looking
of that?
for
Yeah, for Article
on this
4.
article?
So that's going to be $500,000.
500,000.
The water's there, we're just putting in another well.
Right, right beside it, or in the same area.
The last time we did that was on Manley Street, and it cost us, I think, about 150,000. They just allowed us to go within 50 feet around the original well, and they just let us replace the well. But all the rules have changed now, the engineer was telling us. Now we have to go in and we have to prove that we have the water there and it's safely not gonna affect any other wells around it, and that the water quality is there. So we gotta do a pump test on the new well, which we didn't have to do before. So it just added to the cost of the whole thing. The whole project is just much more expensive today than it was a few years ago.
Once again, we'll do as much work as we can do in-house. We're gonna do in-house to try to contain the costs, but right now, that's what the engineer has budgeted out.
And that's as if a contractor's doing the entire job.
Right.
So is the town borrowing this money? Where's this money coming from? Rose?
We're gonna have to borrow that money. Because this is a replacement well. A new well, we bond it, and then we pay for that off the new construction fees. That's what the new construction fees go for, to give us the money to pay for the expansion of the system. But when you're replacing a well, that's on the ratepayers.
So where does the surplus, and I'm not attacking it, I'm just curious, where does the water surplus fit into this whole picture versus replacing a well, new well? What would be the purpose of the water surplus? Because I really don't know.
Okay, water surplus, okay, when we charge off the Walnut Street tank, we charge off the entire mortgage, principal and interest, to the industrial customers, because they got all the benefit of that tank. So we went up on their sprinkler fees, and then we also charged 2/3, or was it 2/3 or 3/4 of the painting of the tanks, because of the two tanks, keeping them up. So that was on the sprinkler fees. So we had figured how much that was going to be. Well, and we overcharged those people by $78,000.
I think so, yeah.
I think we have the figure. It was about $78,000, I think. So they covered all the expenses. Now that falls out of surplus. Now that money should not be used for anything except for either lowering the rate or being set aside for the maintenance for future painting of the tank to lower their cost.
The future paying of what tank? The water tank?
The water tanks.
So that's what the surplus is for? Because I really don't know.
That's how we got the surplus.
Okay.
That's where the surplus came from. We overcharged those customers, but we can't use that money. It wouldn't be fair to take that money and go build something with it, because it was charged off to them to pay for the tank that we built for them, and they saved huge monies. There was one company up there that spent $1 million building a water tank, and then it cost about $100,000 a year to maintain that tank, keep it from freezing, keep it heated and stuff like that. When we built that tank, we doubled their flow. They shut their operation down. So for their tank, they didn't have to maintain it anymore. For them to give us $20,000 a year toward our tank was peanuts, because they saved $100. You know what I mean?
Sure. So I understand, but the question is, there's over $600,000 in water surplus right now.
The other way it comes in is when a person builds a house in town, and we don't know how many houses are going to be built like next year. So last year, they come into the town hall and they pay for a tie-in fee.
No, I understand. I do understand that.
And that comes out 100% surplus.
It goes into the surplus.
Yes.
I understand.
Because that's
so 115 is going to come out of that surplus.
Okay, that was my question.
All right. So, and then after that, remember, we're still searching for new water. That's going to cost us money. We took it out of the budget. That was my question too. Thank you. And we also there are other projects that we don't know will happen or won't happen, but they're not in the $10 range. They're in the $1 million range.
So let me just say what I think, and then anybody could say what they think. I have the floor, so I'm going to say what I think. I think that you all worked very hard, and I think that it sounds like, to me, and I don't know because I'm not there, but it sounds like you do a pretty good job maintaining the water department, which is what you're supposed to do, which is provide water to the town, and that's critically important.
We touch each of you personally
and you
every
sure
day
do.
with that product.
Sure
I
do.
would feel a lot better.
So therefore,
it's
extremely important. What I guess I get my only frustration, not to dredge up old things, my only frustration is that my personal opinion is that the water department facility itself, the building, is more nicely furnished than probably any other department
I
in
just-
town hall. And if your budget is to go, if this $2.023 million is so important to maintain the water operation, where the heck does the money come from? You had that thing 5 years before that got in here. You had one of those projectors. Where did you find the funds for that if your primary purpose is to deliver water to the town?
I
That's
can't
my
answer
only
for that.
frustration.
I can tell you the
Water
building's been there
department.
for 30 years. We just actually rehabilitated our bathrooms ourselves.
Well, I mean,
We did it in-house.
I'll tell you, the furniture that you're talking about, we stole it from the town hall.
the
was
cabinet,
here.
not the furniture, cabinets, some of the other
We did a lot of
equipment,
that
things like that.
Oh, yeah, we built all that.
Built the cabinets.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
those
you
are,
had
those are
to.
just kitchen cabinets, and we got those for like $2,000 when we built the building. We put them all together.
So that's
Jimmy
my
Bridgewater, all the window casings
frustration.
there, we did all that.
Okay, so
was
that
all
money
done
is
by
in
us.
here someplace. So that money was in here. Because that money that went to build the cabinets was in the water department budget.
yeah.
Okay, so last year we had a big fat argument
But it was
about.
30 years ago. They gave us, say, $200,000 to build that building.
I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to. You know what? My feeling is that you do a very good job, and that the water department, and you do a great job, and that the water is vitally important to the town, obviously, and what you do is very important. But I guess I have an objection to we walk into town hall, we force them to live with the building department, which is kind of disgraceful looking. We have not approved giving them a penny to improve it in years, and every time they ask for it, no was the answer. So I guess the frustration is that in all this that seems razor thin, there has been money to fund things that other departments haven't been able to fund. And I hope that going forward, you will
Our
keep that
rugs
in
are all
mind.
cut up. We got
We have
got big
cement
holes in our
floor.
rugs. We can't
maybe
afford rugs.
You need to come visit.
Yeah, you need to see.
The roof leaked for 5 years. We just had that replaced last year.
That's what I
So
saw
we're
last
still
time I
fixing
was
the
there.
ceilings now that are all stained up. But if they're
We
really,
don't hire people. Our crews
there's
do.
there's no luxury. Everything is for a specific purpose. It's not.
Can we go back to, so it sounds, we've gone through your budget.
Yep.
I'm still stuck on the what's changed in your department to require the additional person, whether it's 30 hours or 40 hours a week, whichever it is. What has changed that warrants that increase?
So we've pretty much come under OSHA's rules now.
What does that mean? Sorry, that's Greek to me.
Occupational health and safety. So we're so
She's an
you want
accountant.
to
She
operate
doesn't know
safely.
that.
We work with
Yeah, I
some
work
very
with numbers.
hazardous chemicals. In the past, we might have looked at it more nonchalantly than we should have.
So now that if you're falling under
following-
OSHA's
yes.
realm, what does that change? What
It just
does that
means
mean?
that should somebody get hurt, we better be doing it the correct way because they're gonna come back on us.
So for that, you need an additional person?
No, I can't keep up with the town.
No, yeah.
For every mile of road, remember, there's at least one pipe. There are two,
Yeah.
and in some places there are three.
I understand. I'm just trying to follow what's changed.
Well, since when I got here in 1976, there was the same number of crew that we have now. We've never added any crew. One of the problems that we had when we hired Wayne, I was looking for somebody to help me run the plant. I used to have to run the iron removal plant. I was doing what he's doing now. And I couldn't be in the plant and doing the superintendent's job. Luckily, we found Wayne, okay? He's the type of guy that when you get a regulation, it could be as thick as that book there. One day I gave it to him and asked him to take a look at it and see what we had to do. And he came back on Monday morning and he said, well, we got to take samples here and there. And I was like, it was the weekend. Are you kidding me? You read that whole thing? Yep, I did. Well, he's just the type of person that took over the plant and ran the plant. Unfortunately, he doesn't have one of those type people. They're not, it takes a lot to run the iron removal plant. It's all chemistry, and it's a lot of math, and there's a lot of, just understanding of chemistry. And I don't you have to find that special person. Also, like he said, there's a lot of electrical work in there, and there's a lot of controls. Everything is controlled by fiber optics and low voltage, and there's all kinds of safety switches. If one of the chemicals goes out of whack, the whole plant has to shut down. We can't send out water that doesn't meet the Safe Drinking Water Act, because you got people out there who may have AIDS or be on dialysis or something like that, and you got infants coming home from the hospital. So the water has to meet.
No, I agree,
No,
100%.
this is why. So he's looking for somebody that he specifically can assign, in the plant, get him in there, do the electrical work, and help him with those things, so he can go back, because we've been after him to do more of the administration, but he can't seem to get out of the plants because he hasn't got it. He hasn't got the help.
When was the last time you added a laborer to your staff?
Before I got here in 1976, it was probably about 1950 something. We added,
No, I just think it's entirely plausible. I'm sorry, I might disagree with you, but I do
No,
think
no,
it's
I'm
entirely
just
plausible
looking
that you
for
do
a
need a new
reason.
person, since you haven't had one in years.
And how many more customers do you service now since it's the 70s? Probably quite a
Oh,
few
a
more,
lot.
right?
Yeah, it's probably doubled.
Yeah.
I just want to ask one question, because I have to write the motions. I just want to verify, so for the $115,000, that will be a transfer from surplus, and for the other one, that will be a borrowing article?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So now, should that article pass, then in the short term, there are borrowing, I'll have to find out from Scott the cost. I already know in the long term what the note might hit our budget, but that would be a future budget, that would be next year's. In the interim, there might be money added in for a short term. When they don't borrow it out until you finish the product, so you carry on some sort of amount.
We'll have to pay interest. There'll have to be a short-term interest note.
Yeah.
So until it gets bonded, but that won't be in this budget. It'll be in the following
In the
budget.
future, right. All right, does anyone have any other questions for the water department?
Thank you.
No. Thank you guys for coming in. Thank you very much.
Let's not have any more anomalies.
Yeah, production anomaly. I'm taking that one to work.
You don't want to know.
Go back into the water table.
Yeah, it's recycling.
Is that like backwash?
No.
Okay.
That would be very bad.
We have to talk some.
Sometime, yes.
Are we next? I just moved right up.
Yes.
Assuming.
I don't know. Let me
We weren't
see.
next last night. I assumed we were after
Let's
the
see.
other.
Thank you for your patience.
Oh, yeah, actually, you are next, so.
Good.
But we're not ready for you. Oh, it is 8:05. Okay.
I thought the Board of Health was next. I sent John a text message to see if he'd mind if we go next, but
Well, so you,
He's already gone.
Would've,
He's
yeah.
come and gone.
so welcome. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for seeing us. I put together a little explanatory sheet with some charts and figures on it.
Colors.
Yes. And Jed
everybody,
is an expert at that, so.
does everybody know who Jed is? Jed's the Assistant Director.
Oh, hi,
So
Jen.
you must have to be up in terms of how many people use the
Oh, yeah.
library.
Yeah, we are definitely up quite a bit from the previous year to the end of, well, this is just a 6-month comparison. They're the library visitors. The current year that we're in right now, I mean, it's almost doubled.
Where's that
What are
on
we
here?
talking about?
It's this chart right here.
Okay.
Oh, that's the electricity comparison.
We count. We have a little hashtag going on every day. And so honestly, it's not very accurate.
1, 2, 3,
If we get
4.
busy, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, if
1,
anything,
2,
it's
3, 4, 5.
underreported.
If anything, we're underreporting. Some libraries use a people counter. We tried a people counter when I first got here
Oh,
3
okay, right
years
here,
ago.
library visitors, yes,
Yeah,
okay.
and it was very difficult to use because it was by the door. Every time you touched the door, it would go off, and it wasn't giving it inaccurate. We thought actually the hashtags were a little more accurate. So, yeah, I mean, increased use of the library is the story, for sure. Not only increased use of the library, but the branching out, as as I said last year, but even more so this year. It's just been so exciting, branching out into whole new library services.
Yeah.
it's with Jet on board, we're doing a lot of really cool gaming after school, so the kids aren't just milling around doing nothing, getting into trouble. They're actually engaged with an activity of various types. It's a social time for them mostly, and then we also have lots of tutoring going on. We have kind of a quiet side of the library and an acceptable noisy side of the library. Jed's also brought in a lot of programs. We've just came from a friends meeting in which we've decided to have a sort of a spring cleaning theme of a range of programs, such as a Marie Kondo event where we had someone to come in and talk about tidying up. And we have our custodian is an expert eBay vendor, so he comes in and does an eBay. So once you've tidied up, you have to have someplace you can get rid of your stuff so you can go on eBay.
I was going to say, you can take all the donations would be clean up their books.
Yeah, right. We definitely can use donations for books all the time.
Oh boy.
Anyway.
Fill up my car.
Yeah. We actually, the Friends make, a tidy sum on that. And of course, the Friends, we count on the Friends heavily for museum passes, children's programming, summer reading programs, that sort of thing. As you can see, our computer usage has gone up. Now, the third chart on the side is interesting because it's the traditional borrowing. And as you can see, it's down slightly. And that's a nationwide trend. Commuters, people who work 2 jobs, who are, busy with their families, have been, just borrowing fewer print items. However, if you look at the chart right underneath that, the overall borrowing is going up, and we are bucking the national trend. The reason that we're bucking the national trend, I think, is because we've really pushed ourselves into offering Hoopla, Overdrive, Libby, lots of online services that you can stream. You can use it in your car and listen to a book as you're driving. Thanks to the Town Fathers, we've been able to put something on the billboard that's on Route 24, reminding people that they can listen to a library book as they're driving on their boring commute. So we really feel like we're serving a wider demographic of the West Bridgewater population than we were able to do in the past when it was just print.
It'd be nice if you could borrow books on a Kindle or something.
Oh, you can.
can.
You totally can. Yep, absolutely.
That's we're sure that's why you see the drop in the traditional borrowing, because now people that have never been in the library are using the library. People
Right.
that may never come to the library are using the library because of the classes, the downloads,
Exactly.
The newspapers that are available online, the magazines that are available online. That the library pays subscriptions for the card holders to have access to.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Come get that.
Just look for Libby.
And just to clarify also, we're not just providing these digital resources, we're also providing free for checkout the hardware to access these digital resources. So we have Roku streaming devices, we have Wi-Fi hotspots, we have virtual reality headsets, we
Where's
have
that in their
all
budget?
kinds of hardware. We're very creative with stretching a dollar.
I'm only kidding.
But if you remember a few years back, there was the big debate on town meeting 4, I think it was just before Ellen came on, why are we spending all this money on books, why can't it be technology? And the laws luckily have changed and loosened up that the circulation money can be used.
Great.
Because
Yes.
I think the 3 selectmen were like, can we each pitch in $1,000 so we can just move on? Because I think we beat around $3,000 for about a good hour at one town meeting. But the laws have changed, which is really what Jed's big plus to the library is really being able to implement that technology. And I think our biggest challenge is letting people know it's available. And
Right.
we use the social media for that, but the participation in this stuff is incredible. And I think the library's offering stuff no one ever imagined before. My passengers on my flights probably think I'm crazy, want to know why this flight attendant's talking about his library. I'm like, you can sign out a cake pan. People sit in the seat like, what? Your library does that? You can sign out a hotspot. Like, wow, that's awesome. And there's no doubt there's people that hit hard times and don't have Wi-Fi at their house. I mean, I think there's some families in town would take it out every day if it was allowed, because to have Wi-Fi at your house is very expensive, and you can't have kids in school without having Wi-Fi and internet. Never mind one, if you have two or three. But it's a great thing. People that go on family vacations take the hotspot with them, so they're not using data; they're using the hotspot. And it's been. I know that's another area Ellen really wants to expand on.
Definitely.
More of those available. We're looking at alternative sources along with the budget. I'd like to get some banks to sponsor them, so when they pick up the hotspot, it says Bridgewater Savings Bank or whoever. I only say Bridgewater Savings Bank because they're such big supporters of us already, but we always, through the Friends and through the library itself, looking for alternative sources of funding.
Yeah, in fact, Bridgewater Savings made a donation of $5,000 towards upgrading our network. So we're waiting to, and that's part of my little spiel to you tonight, is to let you know that we will not be asking for a capital request this year, because we asked you for a new flat roof, which worked out great, but we had excess money left over in that. And on the town meeting floor, we're going to be asking the town just to transfer that over into two different items. One would be upgrading the network, both the wired network and the Wi-Fi network, and then also that money, in addition, and with the help of the Bridgewater Savings Bank contribution, that will happen. And then the other thing would be security cameras, which we desperately need, both inside the building.
Oh, my goodness.
And it's really, we're not worried about, I'm not personally worried about theft. I'm more worried about the security. We have kids, and safety.
Yeah, it's a safety issue.
And, we have a lot of times it's just some young women working in the library, and you don't know who's lurking in the outskirts or what kids are over there and who's approaching them and not. That's been a priority, so hopefully we get that done. But right now there's no cameras. And again, I don't think we have a theft problem. I don't think we have vandalism problems, but it'd be nice to make sure that the whoever's sitting at the desk can look and see who's in the alcoves and who's in the kids' room on days. And Nanette's not there. We should see who's over there with the kids and what's going on, and see the gallery where we want to have more shows. And
in the afternoons, with the great help of the principals of the high school and the new principal of the Howard School, has been absolutely fantastic. And we have these little surges of bad behavior, and then it quiets down the surge. I really feel like we're in a good spot right now. So the concept of his job, Tim McLaughlin over at Howard, he's just been so fantastic. He's told us that he feels that the kids' behavior as soon as they leave their home reflects on him. That's how personally he takes their behavior. And so he's talked to some of the kids who've been a problem, and in front of us. I mean, we've had these like sit-down sessions with these. It never amounts to very many kids. It's a tiny little group. But he sat them down and he said, you all want to go to, Nature's Classroom. You all want to have the pizza. Those things are on the line if you misbehave at the library. Well, believe me, this is my third library to work in, and it's the first time I've had this level of support of the school administration. It's just outstanding, which means, it's just terrific. Afternoons are busy, but it's a good busy.
To Ellen's credit, if you remember years past, I don't want to say kids weren't welcome in the library, but it was, in fact, the first church opened up after school hours for kids to just have some place to hang. So if there's problems at the library, it's because Ellen invites them. But she truly, and I say that, there's so much for those kids to do now at the library. And what's really great is seeing when they finally open a book, and what happens is they wait till their friends are gone. They're like, I need to know something about this. And then you see the whole staff out there helping them do some research, because the teacher says it's not all on the internet. You got to get books, and they do. They seriously wait till their friends are gone. All right, bye guys. And then they linger over, and they're like, I really need help. So it's been great, but it is a place that's welcome, and we do have a lot of kids with nothing to do after school, and they're not just hanging out there. They're busy, and like she said, there's very few are the problem. There is some problems, but. Like I said yesterday, we're kind of like the step-parent in the schools, very supportive of the library, and I think there's been some great blood with a lot of new management, including the senior center. I don't think we've ever had such a great relationship, and Ellen always brags about how great Town Hall is, and everyone just works so well together. So
it's been really a pleasure. just quickly, a few other things. We've been really focusing on not just programs, but services. Like, you know that we have a 3D printer. When that first came in, we did a lot of programs around it, classes. And now it's gotten to the point where we have kids and adults who just do one-on-one trainings with me, and then they run their programs. And people come in, like kids who are in college now, if they have a project that they have to run over the Christmas vacation. I've had kids come in and say, like, I really need to run this. So now we've got people from town running their 3D printing projects at our library. And they go, I didn't know how to. But if you Google 3D printing South Shore, West Bridgewater Library comes up as a place where you can get 3D printing done, which is kind of cool.
Do we charge that, or?
We haven't yet because it's just so darn cheap, and I've purchased a whole lot of filament. Eventually we will, and it will probably be something like $1 for the first 2 hours it runs. Things take a long time to run. Okay. But we just feel like it's kind of like a lost leader. It gets people in the building right now, and it really hasn't amounted to all that much money. The other big thing that we've been doing, my two members of my staff, Michelle Sheehan and Gail McCarthy, have been running really successful programs for special needs adults. And there is really very little programming and safe places for those wonderful patrons to come. Not all libraries are welcoming to this group. And they've run some just terrific. Today they did a STEM program for them. These, special needs adults are learning about chemical reactions. They did, that bubbling, the lava flowing out of the volcano thing. They just loved that. They did something with magnetism. And so I'm really proud of them. They're going to be going to the Massachusetts Library Association to give a presentation on the programs they've been giving. So I've really been trying to, if they have an interest, if the staff has an interest, we want them to run with it, because chances are there's a need.
Yeah, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's just absolutely fabulous.
I can speak to that for the adults with special needs, because I'm on a board for a group called GROW.
Oh, yes.
And GROW does attend there, and I've heard the clients, talk about it.
Oh, great.
But and I didn't know this was going on in the library until I heard it from the people at GROW. Yeah. And I was like, wow.
Yeah,
that's my town. Because these people are from all over the South Shore.
Oh, yeah, they are. Yeah. And the thing is, it can be intimidating when a group of people come in who are maybe behaving a little oddly. That would be, and so I think a lot of library staff gets uptight and nervous. Gail McCarthy has a member of her own family who has a special need, so she's very comfortable with it. She's really taught us all to be much more tolerant, and what kind of questions can you ask that you're going to get a great response from. And so she's really taught us a lot about how to handle, and they're so grateful. A lot of times in the winter, especially, a group like that have so few places to visit, they have to sort of wander the mall. They wander around Westgate Mall and without a heck of a lot of, very aimlessly, because it's warm and no one's going to bother them, but there's not a lot going on. They actually really do like to look at the books and the magazines and of course the programs too. So I'm really proud of that. Then another big project that's going on right now is older elementary kids are working with Nanette, our youth services, head of youth services librarian, and Michelle Sheehan, and myself just as technology backup, to put together a stop motion video to enter in the 90-second Newbery contest. And I'll tell you, it is so adorable. It's books that have won the Newbery Prize, which is the once a year great highest prize for children's fiction, children's literature. So you pick a book that you love, which the kids did, and a book by Rebecca Stade. It's called When You Reach Me, and it's kind of about time travel and physics, and it's set in New York in the 70s. Anyway, they picked this book, and then they did a stop. They've got little dolls, and they're moving them, and it's really cool. And so we're going to be entering that, and probably they've done such an outstanding job. I'm sure it's going to be screened up in Boston on April 27th. We already have our tickets, so I just want to tell you about that.
Good luck with that.
So getting back to the budget, which I know is what we're here for. Yes. Sorry. The first 4 items of the budget are contractual and salary based. On your little information sheet, we put together the range of assistant library director salaries and a salary survey that actually Jerry asked David Gagney's staff to put together for us, so that the trustees would know.
I wouldn't have picked these towns.
Yeah, well, I said the same thing.
What the,
There's a reason
the
why.
Department of Revenue comes up with like communities based on a matrix of
You would
different
never
aspects
convince
of the
me
town.
that there would
You're
be
right,
anything
and
about Dover, Hamilton, or Lincoln.
so that's what we, but
It's the size of the budget in a matrix with the population size.
and
the
income
size of the
and
town
home value,
budget.
and it's a little bit of everything. But to be honest, the board voted to give the compensation for our director prior to the research being done. I'm new on the board. I don't know what a library director gets paid. I don't know what area library directors get paid. I know how well respected Ellen is in the industry. I know how well respected she is in the town. I know how the library, that was something becoming very antiquated, then became very relevant in our town. Years sitting as selectmen, I think we all sat around saying, let's cut the library budget, let's cut the budget, let's cut the budget, because it was becoming antiquated, and Ellen brought it back. It's the center of our community. So the money was voted for the raise before I asked for the evaluation, because I just wanted to make sure, you gotta know where the market is and what's high, what's low. And I was second guessing my vice chairperson, who said, Jerry, this is right on target. And I said, well, I want to get it from the, the way we do other department heads.
What's
is-
right on target?
What's that?
What's right
The
on
dollar amount that we had voted. And the
Compared
percent.
to these towns?
Nope, just an average of surrounding in those towns. I just want to make sure we were out of
I
whack,
think in Dover,
up
they
or
actually
down.
really care what they pay in taxes.
Maybe not.
They just write the check and.
Well, Dover is pretty
Very
high, as
way.
you can see. The
Yeah.
Dover Library Director makes $100,000 a year.
So really, the evaluation was after the fact, and I just wanted to
She's
make
probably the
sure.
lowest paid person in Dover, too.
When David Gagny comes back, you can ask him about that matrix. I was surprised by the towns too, but he has a very pretty strong, based on what Jerry described, what the rationale is there.
And I think this is truly we're bound so much by contractual agreements in this town. This is based on merit and performance.
Definitely, it's
Really,
I will say it's 100.
It's easy for me.
100%, and that's why I think Ellen's being a little modest by saying it's because of the evaluation. Because regardless of the valuation, we know what she's worth to the town and what she's making, adding value to that building that was losing value, and 100% the staff is worth it, and I think everyone in the building is worth it, and they all work very hard and they're all very creative. And the funny thing is, when I first got on the board of trustees, I would hear about an idea. One of the staff said, let's have a girls' reading corner where the girls can come in and they read a book. I'm like, that is the stupidest thing I ever heard. No one's going to do that. A week later, but we didn't say that to her. I just said it down. I'm like, I don't think anyone's going to do that. I came in, there's probably 15 girls over in the corner, all with bean bags and their books, and they're all taking turns. I'm going, oh my gosh. I'm like, yeah, we didn't say no. I just didn't think it was going to work. And, it's a big group that still meets all the time.
Yep.
And they're not doing it because it makes their job easier, because signing in and out books would make their job easier. The staff over there initiates and brings ideas forward every day. And one of the things we're making sure is it's easy to put together events for little toddlers, because moms and dads love to take their kids to see butterflies or whatever. But the spectrum of events from adults, special needs adults, toddlers, high school kids. So we just hired through the Friends of the Library, a retired college professor to do all technology stuff. So the jobs, they're making their job harder and making the library better. And we, as a
So can I ask a practical question? Just kind of interesting that the water department just left here and said they budgeted more for heat,
Yeah.
and you haven't.
Yes. Now that comes to my next big announcement. I think you guys already know it probably, but one of the services that we are providing now is
Free heat?
no.
Sign me up.
It's passport processing. And it's funny because before Jerry was
I just don't see the segue. I don't know.
well, we make $35 every time we
Oh, okay.
every time we process a passport.
Do you do renewals or just
Well, some renewals if they're so far out of date. Yeah, if they're within 5 years of expiration, you can do it yourself. And I'll tell you, I was a little hesitant initially. Jerry came up, he said, "You've got to do passports, you've got to do passports." I was like, I don't know. So I talked to the director in Plainville and Carver, both of whom do passports and have for quite some time. And they said it's just a really great moneymaker. And I said, well, is it seasonal? Is it, does it spike at the beginning, then fade away? Both of them said, no. We've done 26 passports already since we started in early February, and we've made almost $1,000. Now, there's some expense that comes out of that. We don't have to pay for the envelopes. The State Department does that. We do have to pay for the priority mail stamp. But it's been working so smoothly, and I'll tell you, I do it for them. I did it because I wanted to add money to the budget. But people are so grateful.
Oh, yeah.
I can't tell you how grateful they are. We don't have to go to the post office. We do it in the evenings.
Next week.
We do
Maybe
it
you
in the
should do,
evenings.
I was going to try to, but she can't do mine.
I can't do his.
Maybe you should look into trying to do TSA pre-check.
You know, we actually
Expert on that.
we actually opened the library up for TSA to come in and do job
Yes,
interviews.
they did. We
But
got a nice
this-
job fair with them.
I didn't even tell Ellen this because it just wasn't going to equate to much money or even really much need. But I also looked into fishing licenses that we don't do anymore and hunting licenses. The town clerk said there was maybe 4 a year,
Road
and
tests just
the
got
state
through.
actually wanted access to the accounts just to automatically withdraw the money, and they weren't asking; they were just going to take it based on license. And that's why John Duggan said, we're not doing this anymore because they just want access to withdraw whatever.
Yeah.
So I never brought that to them, but we're always looking for other things. But that's going to be a revenue generator where we're losing revenue from the late fees for books. This will pick up there and help offset the budget a little bit more. But I think your real question is, why isn't our heat bill going up that much? And the water department's is.
So that money that you're making goes into your general fund.
Right.
That goes into the
It's
revolving
gonna
fund,
offset
yeah.
that, yeah. And we'll be able to, I'm focused on the Plainville experience, which is an 8,000, they realize about $8,000 a year from passports.
Wow.
Carver she counts on $12,000 a year. So, I mean, I think 8 would be.
Don't do renewals, just new
Well, we do distant renewal, like the State Department lets you do that yourself if it's expired within the last 5 years.
Oh, I see.
So,
Sorry, guys, I'm just
we
looking
have
at
to
the
keep moving
time.
on.
Let's see if we can get back
So,
on to
right.
back on track.
So that's actually the big financial explanation of my budget is that I think it's really important that you pay Jed and I enough for us to keep us here, and that's the bottom line is, if you want high quality professionals, you have to pay enough to make it worth their while. And then I'm zeroing out most of the other requested changes simply because I think we're not going to need it. I gave you the electricity rundown that I created. Actually, Beth created here.
Right.
So electricity is one area. Most of our electricity bill comes in the summer, and so we've already experienced most of our bad months for electricity, and we went over by about $1,500. So that's what I'm asking for here, is $1,500 for electricity. We always have to have a little bit more in materials just to stay certified, and then that's kind of it. We've been able to save a little bit of money because Jed is such an expert on technology that we don't have to pay the network to do a lot of the stuff that we can do ourselves.
That's great.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you guys for coming in. Thank you very much.
If you haven't been to the library lately, you haven't been to the library, stop by.
Coming down for a passport next week.
I actually loved when the finance committee used to go do the little field visits. I think that was fun. You should go back to that. It was a good concept. Get you out and see everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Nice to see you too.
Nice to see
Yeah, nice to see you, Deb.
Oh, that's your, I'm right here. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
We used to do these down.
We had
in the library.
subcommittees. We split
did
into
that 1 year.
subcommittees.
Yeah.
And
2 years. 2 years.
1 year we did it.
2001.
1 year. I thought we did it 2 years.
Got us right back on schedule here.
And it was
I know, right back on. Let's
so instead of having them come in, we'd go out as subcommittees, go out to them, and then we'd come in and report.
Mo, would you mind
It was good to
seeing
get
if
out.
there's someone
I went to the
assessor?
highway department. That's how I got to the water department. And I walk in and he's got
Nice.
cabinets and this.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to be moving on to 1410.
Right on time, too, by the way. Nice job.
Hi, guys.
Hey guys, how we doing?
Good evening, everyone. Well,
Good evening.
Thanks. You staying busy these days?
Spending money like crazy.
Oh,
It's always a pleasure.
all right.
John? Yeah.
Good, how are you? All right, so we're on budget 1410. Let's talk about the changes. It looks like you're looking for an increase of 15,000 in the appointed official line.
Oh, would that be you?
The appointed official.
5121.
That's because town meeting cut 12,000 out of the budget
Right.
last year. And I have a contract with the Board of Assessors. My contract was for 82,000. So it's going from 82,000 to 85,000.
Right.
It's a $3,000 increase.
Yeah.
I know what it looks like on paper.
But I had to put in 70 because that's what town meeting included.
Yeah.
Right.
So we were worried when, we made our attempt at town meeting to, get the increase for John approved through town meeting. Where it didn't, we were allowed, the way the office is structured, to try to find that money based on the contractual, the way it was signed. The increase was part of the 3-year contract, so we had to find that money. So I'll mention something in a few minutes. We had to find that money from within, and that was hard to do, but we did that.
Why don't you tell us now? Where did that money come from? Because I know once you signed the contract, the department had to pay you. Right.
That question leads into your question.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
part of that came from on line 5309, on the $28,000 requested, and then, it was approved. We had 6,000 of that for, we're going to try again, for web hosting for the assessors maps that go online. Right now, on a different line, the web hosting 5328 is for the online assessors property record cards. And, we did it a few years ago, and it's working out good. I
think our committee was the one that had asked for
You
it.
had approved it, we were going to go ahead with it.
Yeah.
Town meeting cut $12,000, we couldn't spend, in good conscience, couldn't spend that money.
Right.
Because otherwise, we would have been coming to you asking for $12,000. So we didn't spend the money.
So the 28, part of the 12 for John under the contractual obligation, part of that 12 came from 5309. It was $8,000 of that for, or six, whatever, for the web hosting, except for the map, so we didn't get that last year because of that. And then the rest of it, I'm not sure exactly, from I don't have a breakdown exactly.
Are you going to make
We had
it?
a retirement, and the person was at the highest salary.
Right, oh, right, yeah,
So
okay.
for half of the year, we won't be.
And what line is that?
That
That's
would
in
be
clerical?
in appointed officials.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
In the current budget.
And I'd like to talk briefly for a second on the, no, this ain't right here. That should
Why is
be-
the clerical salaries going up so much? It's 7.3%.
We're trying to go, Donna Carter has retired, and she was part-time, 25 hours a week. And John and I, myself really, being in the business for a long time, and looking at other communities, felt the urgency or a need for that job to go full-time. Right now, we have a full-time gal down there. We're trying to replace Donna, and those are tough shoes to fill as far as her job capability and such, top-notch. So we're trying to get someone in there. And really, in order to invest the time in them, to train and such, we're hoping that start part-time with this year and try to get town meeting to approve. That's why we put it on the budget like that, trying to get town meeting to approve a full-time position.
So, wait a minute, now let me stop you there. Donna, what was Donna's job?
That's right.
Okay.
Sorry.
What was Donna's job?
She was,
Salary?
Donna, what was her position?
she was the head, she was the,
Head secretary.
A secretary. So now you don't have a head, you have a principal secretary who is Tammy.
yeah,
And then the position that you're creating is just the secretary.
right. And
Okay.
we've, roughly on the requested, where is it? With the clerical salaries, we're hoping to start that person somewhere in the I don't know, 20,
We've budgeted $25.08 per hour.
yeah.
But we're going through the interview process now. We don't know the caliber of the individual that we're going to get.
Right.
In other words, if they have any assessing experience whatsoever, or if they're completely versed in assessing.
When did Donna retire?
February 1st.
Right.
Okay.
So that's going to leave you with enough money in the budget to bring in a full-time person instead of part-time?
Not now, because we don't have the town meeting authority. And we've discussed it with the town administrator. Town meeting did not fund a full-time person at the last town meeting. So we're operating on the assumption that we will hire someone at 25 hours, part-time position, and then ask town meeting to make it a full-time position, to fund it as a full-time
So
position.
which one of these categories would this person be fitting into?
To be determined.
Is those the categories that are undefined?
Yeah, that was from the fire, that's from the fire
And what we-
department.
I don't have that in front of me.
When
that
we
sheet.
advertised the
That's from the
position,
fire department.
Because that's like step 7 on, and
Right.
that 2508 is like step
Yeah.
7 on, or 8 on these
And
first
we-
3, pretty much.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I have an explanation for that. We had a conversation with the town administrator, and we were made aware that, according to the collective bargaining agreement, nobody can be hired any higher than step 5 in any one of those 5 grades. So we took step 5 at the lowest grade, which is $20 and some cents, and step 5 with the highest grade, which is $28 and change. And we advertised the position between $20 and $28, but we budgeted for around $25 because
In all likelihood, that'll be it,
probably
yeah.
where
So you're going to replace Donna with a 25-hour per week person until town meeting? Is that what I'm gathering? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
And
if they
hopefully
approve,
we
then-
can, get them to
Right.
go along. That's easier said than done, but there is an urgency for it. And really, I have a vested interest downstairs, but in my opinion, there should be, another, the full-time person we're trying to get, and maybe somebody else part-time or a part-time assistant for him. That's down the road. But, the way things are with the office and the technology and people coming in and a lot of stuff that we go through with all of our departmental task, in my opinion, it would warrant, an upgrade in the personnel down there, as far as time goes anyways.
So does it make sense to hire another secretary, or do you need a different skill set?
Need the secretary, absolutely, yeah, because we do a lot of work with the, the excise and the deeds and such. That'd be first and foremost, yeah.
And more than likely, they'd come in at a similar position at Tammy, which means I'd supervise them both until one of them really gains the skill sets to be a head secretary in the office.
We are on the consultant service 5309. 20,000 of that is under. It's an annual to our. We have Patriot Properties as a real estate vendor. They come into the town and perform the revaluation work to put the values on it. That then we, John and I, as such, we oversee. But we're obligated. When is that contract up? Next year? This year?
Next year.
Yeah. So we'll renegotiate that. But for FY20, of the 28,000, $20,000 is for Patriot. And unfortunately, if you move down to 5398. On the requested FY20 for 10,800, it's almost, for lack of a better word, like extortion. It's the Patriot Property that we have hired. It's for a licensing fee to use their software. So they've now increased it from FY19 to FY20 up to the amount of 10,000. Well, there might be a little bit, 10,800 for the Patriot software.
It's level service.
So wasn't, now, does my memory serve me that, that doing putting the assessment records online, weren't we going to try to phase out Patriot Property? Wasn't that the whole deal?
Yeah, and getting the
Yeah, I can-
full-time,
yeah.
full-time, I think, right?
Yeah, I can answer that. That was never, it wasn't a question of phasing them out altogether.
Or
'cause
reducing their need, reducing our
reducing some of their,
dependence.
right. And, I've explained to, in the past, if anybody, that really was interested in that, we're trying to do some of that work in-house, some of the data analysis and such. But more importantly, I explained to the selectmen last night that recently we had a large court case go forward, and we had some town had, I thought was liability on the tax bill. So we brought an outside expert in for appraisal qualifications and, maybe town council. That cost to the town is going to be $10,000 to $12,000. In my 14 years here, that's only the second time we've gone outside. John and I have handled most of that for the town. Going in, like for myself, obviously I can't charge the town. I'm elected, and being expert witness and perform appraisals, and John's done that too. So a lot of our savings, we do use Patriot for the hard, for the revaluation on the parcel stuff. But if you will, the behind the scenes, a lot of the court work, preparation, negotiations with attorneys, John and I do that ourselves. A lot of communities use outside help. That's what my full-time job, I work with 3 adjacent communities, representing the community against those abatement attorneys. So
how did that court case go?
It hasn't been litigated yet, adjudicated. There's been a postponement and such, some technicalities. But my point is that a lot of that stuff, when we're dealing with some of these larger taxpayers, I'll sit at my kitchen table over John, and the preparation of that stuff is done in-house. So we save some money there. I just can't give you a tape on the amount. As far as the regular revaluation work, I'm hoping, and we've been trying to, John's done some sales analysis. Unfortunately, if we try to save stuff in-house, you'll see, like with the licensed software price, that stuff will tend to go up, over the years. But they do a good job for us, and we have no problems with the Department of Revenue. So, which is first and foremost to get a timely tax rate set.
And I have looked at that issue over the last year because of some of these conversations, and I haven't even had this conversation with you, Steve. I apologize if this is news to you too. Most of the work they do is clerical work. What we do, in other words, is we send letters to all of the taxpayers asking for their income and expense statements. They complete them and they send them to our office. We send them letters to fill out the forms of list, which is the personal property of all the businesses in town. They send them to our office.
It's bulk work.
We put the office staff puts that paperwork in order, boxes it, and sends it off to Patriot Property. And they process it. So they do the data entry, they do the valuation, they look at the income and expense statements, they look at the forms of list. They compare it with what was in the record from the previous year or what other comparable businesses have for income and expense statements, market information, and property inventory. So it appears to me that if we moved in a direction to try to reduce the contract with Patriot, we probably would be talking about clerical staff.
And you think that's where you got a lot of pushback last year?
We did.
About, when we brought you on full-time as a town, and then the expectation that would go down a little
Yeah, I know. That was
so
ridiculous.
And it's funny that, there was nothing documented, but at that time, like John actually went into the appellate tax board to represent the town, and we prevailed. But let's say if we had to bring a Steve McCarthy from the outside or somebody comparable, it would have cost the town between $5,000 and $7,000. So there's something like that. You don't see, like I say, you don't see the dollar amount on the table, but believe me, there's a savings there.
Yeah, no, I understand. I think it's just the way.
And I want to say I want to document this too to the board is that when we hired John, 2 people that I personally interviewed for his position, two people one after the other went to work for an adjoining town, and each person didn't last 6 months. They didn't have, they were appraised and such, but didn't have that municipal experience, and there was nobody there to hold them by the hand, and they just didn't last. Because you really get what you pay for.
I had a question along those same lines, and that was full-time was going to allow you more to fight these abatements.
Absolutely.
Bigger people. Do we have any data on what that's, or have you already answered that?
He just answered
one. Do you know if we've prevailed in any of these?
It's an intangible, and I would like to say that we've done a superb job in the intervening year. But in all seriousness, it's given me the time to spend on those cases. And I've said this before, but I really do believe it bears repeating. I like to believe that I saved the town money in the last year, but the chairman of the Board of Assessors deserves a lion's share of the credit.
Okay, well, so between the two of you,
the work that
you need to come up with something tangible. I mean, going to the taxpayers and saying it's intangible isn't going to convince anyone of the value.
It will go to the appellate board.
When their attorneys come in from downtown Boston and on a property that was assessed here at $15 million, 3 years, $45 million, and through our preparation, they walked out of there. They expect 3 to 6% of the tax bill, the attorney.
Right.
And that was considerable money on a $50 million assessment times 3 years. And because we did our homework, because that's what I do for a living on the outside here, as you all know, they got nothing.
If I may say, I think what Jerry's trying to say to you is when you're facing the general public, if you could cite some specific examples.
Message received.
Yeah.
That would
Thank you.
That would give you
Thank you.
Yes.
that would give
How
you
much- how
some
much of
more
that is public
standing.
information, though, on that?
No, well, I think that we can make
Well, you can make
a
general
reasonable.
Right. You
We're
can
not asking
present-
for names
the
and
word
phone
right out of
numbers,
my
we're
mouth.
just
Enough
asking
facts.
for,
Generalization, that the combination of the chairman and myself have saved tens of thousands of
Well,
dollars.
that's what you want. Yeah.
Case number one, you know, they
In
look
this
for this, we
situation.
felt
Right
that.
away, you've justified it.
otherwise you haven't, otherwise people are, they're wasting their money, so, and we're
They
not
don't
gonna
know
do
what
that.
it's
I
for
understand.
and what, right. they
And I
need
don't want to
understand
jinx a pending case.
Right.
No, we're not saying that, we're just
Right.
saying.
We got a couple big ones coming up.
But I
so-
think,
All right, just, I
hoping
just
that
had a,
we have good news.
so why did you only get $1,100 in office supplies last year? I mean, that seems like
Was it for
very,
coffee,
That was all
coffee
that was
machine stuff?
approved.
Or
that was all that was
Oh,
approved.
supplies,
Town
toner,
meeting.
all that stuff?
Oh, town
Toners,
meeting.
carpet, office supplies, I'm sorry, is that what
Yeah,
you said?
office supplies, yeah.
5420, that comes under the category of stuff for the copier.
Yeah, I
printer.
mean, it was 1,100 and you're requesting 2,000 again, 3,000.
We had requested the same amount last year, but I think you took a meat cleaver to it, or somebody did. I think we received a memo that
Oh, did we
the
give
budget
them
was
that?
being
1,100?
reduced by
I mean,
Yeah,
$1,000 or
that does
$1,000.
sound familiar.
It might have been because of the prior year spending was.
2,300?
Well, in FY18, the actual was approved was FY18 was not 19,
right.
18, 2990. So it then went down to approved town 2, now it's back up to where it was a couple of years ago.
And I'm speculating,
that's
but we
equipment
might have been at
replacements, looking at the
mid-season,
wrong
and
line.
maybe
Yeah.
the actual spending mid-season
Right.
last year was only several
Yeah.
hundred dollars.
That's probably what drove that.
You guys don't miss a trick, do you? Now you get down to our office supplies.
Well, that's our job.
Yeah, I understand that. Listen, I know what you do. My hat's off to you, believe me.
Well, there isn't a lot that you can really,
No.
there's a lot of contractual agreements.
Yeah, and it's a small budget, relatively.
Yeah,
speaking.
yeah,
Does anyone have any other questions relating to this budget?
I do not.
All right. Well, then, thank you guys very much for coming in.
Thanks for taking it easy on us. I appreciate that.
Have a good
You guys did a
evening.
good job. Thank you. Doesn't go
Thank you.
unnoticed, believe me.
Well, the town meeting didn't seem to think we did a good job last
I'm
year.
representing that, Marilyn, so, yeah.
Oh,
Okay. Thank you, guys. Enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you.
good to see you.
Good night.
Thanks for everything you do for the town.
Thank you. All right, what else did we have on the agenda?
We're gonna vote on those the articles, or we're gonna wait till next week to vote on the articles? Vote next week?
Next week, not next week, the following meeting.
2 weeks from now.
Is it the
We'll vote on the warrant articles, on the.
Well, we just went through the first, we went through 3 and 4. Should we vote on those? We might as well vote on them. We're here.
Well, I mean, Article 1 is to elect a temporary moderator. I mean, that's kind of like refer to voters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have to take a position on that.
So refer to voters, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So how, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. To recommend unanimously.
Oh, yeah, for the
Article
roof.
2, this is for the Howard School gym roof.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve.
To recommend?
Recommend, yeah.
Is it first? Is there a second?
We'll just buy them a couple more buckets.
Yep, so,
Was that seconded? Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
sorry, I just wanted to know how much.
You're right.
Yeah, so these are warrant articles. So this, all this does is this goes out so everybody knows what the agenda is.
Okay.
So the numbers aren't set on this. And the reason being is because at town meeting floor, you can amend those numbers unless they're in the article. And in the article, then they get entrenched. So with that said, that's why you'll never see numbers on here.
Okay.
All right, so with Article 2, right now they're talking $413,000 is what the estimate is. MSBA is going to do a 52.69% match. That means that they would pay for approximately $217,610. So the town would be responsible for $195,390. And the selectmen will be voting on them at the next meeting. But I will propose to them that we will move money from free cash in order to pay for it, so we don't have to borrow money.
All right, anyone want to make a motion
I'll make a
to
motion.
recommend? All right.
Recommend.
Is there a second?
Second?
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. 6-0, unanimous.
What's happening free cash right now?
It was 1.6 million.
Okay, Article 3,
Lot
this
better
is,
than it used to be.
Article 3 is to move that 115,000 from surplus for the water department.
Information.
Is that
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Article 4, this is for the 500,000 for the water department. And this is most likely going to be borrowed. Is that
Right.
right?
I'll make that motion.
All right. To recommend?
Yes.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
First and yep, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right.
Hose water.
And the last one is for the fire department for the few new gas tanks.
Yeah, so,
They're leaking.
so, if you're on Route 106 and you're looking at the public safety building, immediately adjacent to its right is a fuel filling station. And that is for all municipal vehicles. Apparently, the management system for that is failing, and so you can't get gas out of it. And so we have already taken precautions. We've opened up some accounts on commercial accounts, but they're gonna be more expensive because we buy it at wholesale. So, we went out to bid. We received 3 bids. They ranged from $35,185, which was the lowest, to $38,975, which was the highest. So we will be putting in for $38,185, obviously.
That's for repair, Dave, or
Yeah, that's to
replacement?
replace.
Replace.
And then I will probably add a few $1,000s, because you'll usually have to add contingency to it, because, you know, they get on the ground and something happens. 10% is the normal course of action,
Yeah.
so somewhere around $38,000 is probably what the article will be. And so that will allow us to be able to replace that. And the reason we would normally do this to a capital budget and do it at the annual town meeting, but it's going to take about 60 to 90 days for them to order the part and get it in. And so if we wait till June, it won't be fixed till September.
Right.
And in the meantime, we're overpaying for gas somewhere
Right,
else.
you're gonna make up the savings.
But you're not replacing that whole tank, just the management portion of it? Yeah.
All right. Anyone like to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Recommend?
Recommend.
Excuse me.
Second. Yeah.
First and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved unanimously.
Very easy.
I recommend. And this is on March 25th at 7 p.m. Make sure we're all
Right, I
there.
can't wait.
And was that the last item on our agenda?
Was.
Did anyone have any other business to bring before the committee? Would- Yes.
Next meeting is 21st, yes.
Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Have a good night.
You too.
You too.